are not familiar with Kelowna, Traders Cove, if you cross the bridge heading west over the bridge to West Kelowna, and then you turn right, that is going north, Traders Cove is what, about 10 minutes, Janine, up the road. You say don't. Yeah, you say don't do what I did. Tough lessons, huh?
Tough lesson, and the thing is, I was so concerned with just your commitments and stuff like that, and the fact that we had alerts before, and I don't want to say they ended up, sizzling down or something like that, but I will from here on just if you get the alert, start packing. If you get the order, just get out. It goes so fast. Yeah. It went so fast. It was insane.
Well, we're really glad you're all right, and we're really glad you made it out. It's a scary situation, and it's really good to talk to you, Janine. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right.
That's Janine Reese, who lives in Traders Cove in West Kelowna. We reached her in downtown Kelowna. She escaped by kayak last night, and again. And I've seen social media posts, Jason, saying, they've just issued an order. Can I pop back in and get X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. Mm-hmm. If Janine can leave us with a lesson, that is, if there's an evacuation order, you get out.
Absolutely. My thanks to Janine, our thanks to Janine for sharing that harrowing story with us. It's coming up to 25 minutes now past 4 o'clock. You're listening to a special province-wide edition, CBC Radio 1. I'm Jason D'Souza in Vancouver, joined by Chris Walker in Kelowna. And earlier today, federal ministers held a press conference to discuss the evacuation efforts for residents fleeing the wildfire, both in the Northwest Territories and, of course, the evolving situation here at home in BC. For more on all of that, we have reached Anya Caradiglia, who is on the line. She's a parliamentary reporter at the National Post. Hi, good afternoon, Anya.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for taking the time. And so, of course, with the wildfire emergencies unfolding here in BC, but also with an eye on the Northwest Territories and what's happening in Yellowknife, tell us what the federal ministers had to say about support.
So we heard from a number of federal cabinet ministers today. They kind of outlined the government's response to the wildfires, and that's really a support role because the response to wildfires is led by provinces and territories. But today we heard about things the federal government is doing, like changes to transport regulations and deploying some Army assets.
And do we have a sense of how support is being perhaps divvied up between the situation both in the Northwest Territories, but of course how quickly things are evolving here in BC?
So the two situations are kind of on different timelines. So the Northwest Territories asked for federal help a little bit earlier on when, the fires there kind of started a little bit earlier on, or at least this latest development. And that was granted. So the federal government has had a chance to offer support to deploy Canadian Armed Forces members. But kind of the stage they're in regarding what's happening in British Columbia is that they've offered support. They've said we're available to help. And that's kind of the stage that they're at, and that now they have to wait. We're waiting to see what kind of help the provincial government will need, and then they'll be in a position to start offering some of the same kind of support.
There have been concerns about price gouging for people who have been trying to leave Yellowknife. Is the government doing anything to prevent that?
So we heard about that from Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez, and he basically told us that he's had conversations with, the CEO of Air Canada and other airlines, and that they've assured him, the price gouging is not happening, that all prices would be kind of economy pricing. Of course, he was asked, well, if it does happen, what kind of penalties are going to, are you going to implement? And he didn't really give specifics. He just said, if it happens, there's going to be zero tolerance from government, and then we'll look at the options that we have to deal with it.
Of course, Anya, communication is at a premium these days. There's some concerns that are being raised that the usual flow of news and information isn't happening right now because of Meta and Google blocking news on their social media platforms. How is all of that playing out?
Right. So Meta started blocking news from being posted or shared in Canada about 2 weeks ago due to a dispute, this standoff with the federal government. And that's over a piece of legislation called the Online News Act. So what we saw today was ministers coming out and trying to kind of try the case in the court of public opinion, trying to publicly shame Meta for what it's doing. They called it reckless, unacceptable, and publicly asking it to change course, given the danger of the situation that we're seeing in the Northwest Territories and in BC.
Well, Anya, we will leave it there for now. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much.
It was Anya Karadiglia, who is a parliamentary reporter with the National Post. And Steve Jung is with us now with an update on traffic.
Well, Jason, that travel advisory for that 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland remains in effect. This is due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. We're no longer seeing the same delays northbound on the highway trying to leave Kelowna. Traffic looks to be flowing quite smoothly, but once again, that travel advisory is still in effect. Be prepared for short-notice closures and avoid that route if you do not need to be there. Taking a look at some incidents here in the Lower Mainland, we're seeing a crash on Boundary Road northbound at First Avenue in the left lane. Looks like that crash on Grandview Highway off-ramp from Highway 1 westbound. Only the HOV and left lanes are currently getting through, but that crash in Vancouver on Highway 1 westbound at First Avenue, that is gone, and an earlier crash westbound on Highway 17 at Bridgeview Drive blocking one of the left turn lanes. That is also now gone. More updates on the roads coming up after the news.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. You are listening to a special province-wide broadcast of CBC Radio 1. We are tracking the wildfire situation across British Columbia. Much more coming your way. We also want to hear from you. Our phone lines are open now. They will be for the rest of the program. You can give us a call province-wide, 1-800-825-5950. Right now it's time for your BC News with Stephanie Mercier.
This is CBC News from Vancouver. Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Mercier. The fire situation in BC is intensifying. There are 4,800 people under evacuation orders around the province. More than half of those are in the Kelowna area.
Last night, I joined my men and women on the ground at about 2 a.m. And we undertook one of the biggest firefights I've ever been a part of in the West Kelowna Estates neighborhood. The firefighters who fought that fire held that ground. They saved homes, too numerous to list in West Kelowna Estates.
Jason Brolin is the fire chief of West Kelowna. He says despite best efforts, though, the aggressive McDougall Creek wildfire has destroyed a significant number of properties in the Trader Cove area and along Bear Lake Road. It's not yet clear how many. Among the losses is the historic Lake Okanagan Resort. New evacuation orders are being added hourly in the area. UBC Okanagan has been evacuated. The airport has cancelled all commercial flights. As Tim Weeks reports, strong winds and the possibility of lightning in some regions has firefighters preparing for things to get even worse.
Fire crews described a series of challenges. Towering flames, some fires doubling or quadrupling in size in a matter of hours. Other fires changing direction or jumping barriers. Everywhere, crews have been stretched to the limit.
Our government is deploying every resource available to keep people safe and protect the community.
Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma praised all the fire crews and first responders who have been working around the clock. And she warned of the dangers of the fast-moving fires and asked residents in the fire zones to be prepared to leave and to go when asked.
By following evacuation orders and alerts, you are doing everything you can to help protect your community. Currently, there are more than 4,500 people under evacuation order and more than 23,500 people under evacuation alert across the province.
Numbers that are expected to grow very quickly as this summer of fire gets more extreme. Tim Weeks, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the wind conditions are creating growing fires across the province. 2 wildfires are forcing more people out of their homes in the North Shuswap. Jim Cooperman of Lee Creek says he and his wife decided to leave before an evacuation order was issued for 75 properties impacted by the East Adams Lake fire.
Right now we're very stressed out. There's fire right near us. We decided to load everything up and hot put it out of there. The sprinklers are going behind our house and on every house. There's structural protection crews in the neighborhood. Not looking good for the North Shuswap right now.
Evacuation orders have also been issued for Scotch Creek and the west side of Solista. The Bush Creek East fire on the other side of Adams Lake has moved closer to the Interfor lumber mill. Information Officer Forrest Tower says strong winds are making it difficult for ground crews to push it back. In the East Kootenay, the Horse Thief Creek fire north of Panorama is pushing past man-made guards. Winds and hot weather continue to challenge firefighting efforts. Al Miller is the mayor of Invermere. He is asking residents to remain calm and vigilant.
When I say being calm, that doesn't mean whipping out to the fire to get that great shot or photo. That means staying out of the way, letting our agencies do their proper job, and we'll be well supported, we'll be well looked after. Our fire departments are fantastic, and everything from wildfire to our structural fire departments up and down the valley, they do a wonderful job.
The Regional District of East Kootenay urges all residents in the region to sign up for their evacuation notification system, regardless of how close you are to a wildfire. And the province has assigned crews to try to protect structures from the Crater Creek fire, 18 kilometres from Karameus. Shaylee Stearns with the BC Wildfire Service says the fire has grown overnight and is getting more aggressive.
On the west and southwest flanks of this fire, we are seeing rank 3 fire behavior. And then as we go into the southeast corner, we are starting to see that rank 4 fire behavior picking up in that area. So we are seeing significant fire behavior still, and that's earlier in the day when we're not quite in our peak burning window.
She says gusty winds makes the situation worse. The Wildfire Service hopes to hit the fires with more water bombers if the heavy smoke will allow for it. And a reminder for people affected by the fires across the province, you can get information updates on the CBC News app and our website, cbc.ca/bc. And if your device is low on power or data, you can also use cbc.ca/LITE for updates. It's a text-only website. And that's the CBC News.
Stephanie, thank you very much. Welcome back to a special CBC Radio 1 broadcast. We are province-wide. I'm Jason D'Souza with you in Vancouver. Continuing our wildfire coverage, we're going to have more of your calls and stories in this half hour of the program. We're also going to take a look at the effect of wildfires outside of the Okanagan. The Boothroyd Indian Band is located between Lytton and Boston Bar. And the Kukupee Creek fire is threatening 86 community members and more than 30 homes. We'll hear more about that coming up in just a few minutes' time. First, though, Steve Jung is back with an update on traffic.
Jason, the travel advisory issued for an over 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland remains in effect. This is due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Heavy delays northbound trying to leave Kelowna have since cleared up, but traffic is managing to get through. But once again, that travel advisory is for both directions. If you don't need to be on that route, do not be on that route, and drivers are being asked to be prepared for short notice closures. Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukupee Creek wildfire, and the Adams Lake Ferry is providing service to evacuees and emergency services personnel in both directions due to the lower East Adams Lake wildfire, and the public is prohibited from entering the evacuation order zone. Gun Lake Road near Lillooet is closed due to the Downton Lake wildfire, one of the Squamish Lillooet wildfires currently burning. No detour is available, and the Mission Mountain Road 1 kilometer north of Lillooet is also closed near the Casper Creek wildfire. For the most up-to-date information on which roads are currently closed as a result of the ongoing wildfire situation here in BC, check the Drive BC website. More updates coming up shortly.
Steve, thank you very much. Our phone lines are open this afternoon throughout the program. You can give us a call. We'd love to hear from you, how you're doing, how the last 24, 48 hours have been for you. Province-wide, 1-800-825-5950, 1-800-825-5950, or you can email us as well on the coast at cbc.ca. And CBC Kelowna's Chris Walker is with us as well. I know it's been a very long day for you, Chris. What's going through your mind right now?
Well, I'm just looking out our windows here, and as the sun sinks lower, there's a spooky orange glow throughout this city, and the wind is blowing from the north at 26 kilometers an hour. And as you drive around the city, Jason, and we'll go through the neighborhoods, some of which are on evacuation order, alert, or none of the above, people are nonetheless packing up, moving away from these fires. One of those people is Scott Sieben. He lost his home 20 years ago. and is on the line with us this afternoon. Scott, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you doing?
We're hanging in there. Obviously, it's a bit of a weird time for everyone, and especially for those of us that have been through this before. It's a bit of an eerie feeling for sure.
Well, describe the weirdness for us. How did yesterday go? What have you been up to today?
Fortunately, we're not in an area right now that has either been put on the evacuation alert or notice. So we're just hanging tough. My son actually was put on evacuation alert, and then that was recently upgraded to an evacuation order. So, but we do realize that there's a lot of people out there who it's that great unknown of not knowing what's happening and what's going to be happening in the future. That's really hard for people to get a handle on.
Now, obviously, memories for you. You lost your home 20 years ago. How does that change how you experience the current crisis?
Well, I think it's one of those things I really give a lot of credit to just emergency services as well as all the firefighters who are out there. You learn very quickly when you've been through that situation. Losing a house is a really tough thing, and it's huge and it's traumatic. But really, the most important thing I know for us was our family, and the fact that back in 2003, there were so many homes that were lost, but thankfully not any human life. And to me, that's one of the biggest factors that you really have to really focus on is your family okay? And if they're okay, then really that is the most important thing, and that's what you really have to concentrate upon.
I wonder, there may be people listening who either know they've lost their homes or are not sure that their home is still standing. Can you offer any comfort or advice to people who are in that position right now?
I think every single person is going to kind of deal with that situation a little bit differently than other people, for sure. But as I mentioned, the most important thing is your family okay? And to me, that's you realize that everything in your home is stuff, and a lot of it does have really significant memories. I know we definitely lost some things that we wish we would have taken with us and or taken better care of. But at the same time, was our family safe, and them being safe is by far the most important part. When you don't know whether your house is still standing or not, that's one of those weird things where you're wondering, okay, what's my life going to look like? And obviously, if you do lose your home, that whole rebuilding process is traumatic as well, because you have to go through that whole process of, not only rebuilding a home, but buying spoons and cutlery and plates and clothes and everything else. So, but just remember, it's stuff. And so if your family's fine and you're healthy and fine, then really that's the focus that everybody should really be taking care of.
What are your plans for the next couple of days?
I think we're just here to offer support to everybody. I work on the west side, and I have a number of my staff members who've now been either put on alert or evacuated. So we're just trying to keep touch with them and making sure that they're okay, and making sure that if they have any needs, we'll try to do whatever we possibly can to support the people in the community who do need something.
Scott, I understand, the principal of Mount Boucherie Secondary School, and a lot of people have kids and teenagers in tow, whether they're moving around or getting ready to move around. Any thoughts on how to talk to kids about this, the acute crisis and then the longer term context that we're living through?
Yeah, obviously it's one of those things. I think you really need to make sure that you're honest with your kids, and even with your adolescents or your teens. There's no doubt. Like my youngest is 20 years old, and the fire that she went through when she was a baby, it still affects her now. And the fact that she realizes and can see from us the different stress and the trauma that we went through, that it still affects us, and therefore it's affecting her. We received a phone call from her earlier, just kind of really worried about, what was happening. The fact that she knew that where her brother lived, that he's now being evacuated. and just really sort of that whole care and concern for everybody in the community. And I think that's one thing that we realize as well is that when you are dealing with kids, you try to be honest with them, try to explain the situation, and really emphasize the fact that, we're really fortunate in our community that there are so many people who are out there who are going above and beyond. And I give a lot of credit to, as I said, the firefighters led by Travis Whiting in Kelowna, and then Jason Brolin on the west side, who are working day and night and doing whatever they possibly can to keep as many people safe as they are.
And they have another long night ahead, both of them. Scott, it's been really good to talk to you this afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care.
That's Scott Sieben, who is on evacuation alert, principal of Mount Boucherie Secondary School, lost a home in the 2003 Okanagan Mountain Park fire. Jason?
All right, Chris, thank you very much. And of course, as these wildfires expand, there's a lot to watch for, including how it's affecting the roadways and the highways. Steve Jung has been watching all of that. How does it look right now, Steve?
Well, Jason, that travel advisory issued for a 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland is now still in effect. It's due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is managing to get through northbound on the highway to Vernon, BC. This is the primary route out of the region. So, again, the travel advisory remains in effect. If you don't need to be on that route, please don't be there, and be prepared for short notice closures if that's where you're currently driving. Taking a look elsewhere in the province, Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukabee Creek wildfire. And here in the Lower Mainland in Metro Vancouver, we're still dealing with a crash on Boundary Road northbound after First Avenue in the left lane, as well as a crash on Grandview Highway off-ramp from Highway 1 westbound. Only the HOV and left lanes are currently getting through. On BC Ferries this afternoon, you're looking at not a whole lot of options if you're sailing from Tawasin to Swartz Bay. All remaining sailings for this afternoon no longer have any more vehicle space. Perhaps you could walk on as a foot passenger, but if you need to get to Swartz Bay and you're driving, your best bet, well, your only option is to wait until tomorrow. More traffic updates coming up shortly.
Steve, thank you very much. It's coming up to 15 minutes before 5 o'clock, before 6 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. And you're listening to a special CBC One broadcast province-wide this afternoon. I'm Jason D'Souza in Vancouver, joined alongside by Chris Walker in Kelowna. And we've largely been talking about the wildfires in Kelowna this afternoon, but other fires are concerning as well. Boothroyd Indian Band is located between Lytton and Boston Bar, and yesterday it was placed under evacuation order. And for more, we're joined now by George Campbell. He is a Boothroyd Indian Band counselor and also an incident commander for the Kukabee Creek fire with the BC Wildfire Service. Hi, good afternoon. Hi there, George. Can you hear me all right?
Hi, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. And to start, what is the latest situation to your understanding?
Yeah, currently our main focus is on the life and property and infrastructure, and protecting those values right now and ensuring the communities in and around Boothroyd, Boston Bar area and the Nahatlatch are safe and evacuated out of those areas currently.
George, can you take us back 24, 48 hours ago and just walk us through how quickly things unfolded?
Yeah, so roughly around 2:30, I was on a fire in the Stein Valley, fire K7 1634, assisting with that fire, and I started noticing a column to the south, and we happened to be working a fire to the south a few weeks back, and I was getting text messages from the communities, and I immediately asked the incident command team if I could go look into that fire, as it was kind of in and around the community of Boothroyd, which I happen to, be a member of, and I grew up in that community. So I flew over there to have a look, and the fire was aggressively, approaching the what we call the Four Barrel Road in the Nahatlatch Valley, and within about 45 minutes, that fire had started to peak the ridgeline and make its way down towards the Fraser River. So at about 5 o'clock, 5:30, the fire progressed, and and jump the highway. So I initiated evac alerts for Boothroyd, and that quickly became an evac order.
Wow.
With the aggressive fire behavior that we were experiencing there. So
wow.
Very quick moving fire, and it was devastating, to be honest with you, to see how quickly the fire was moving. And we just started to focus on evacuating people in the Hatlatch Valley, and going door to door and pulling people out of there safely. And that was the primary focus within the first night of that fire. So.
And George, how much do you credit your instincts and expertise from experience to make that call, to want to take a closer look, and ultimately being on top of how quickly things moved from there?
Well, it's just when you've been put into these kind of situations over the years, 2021 and being involved in 2017 and all the major fires in the province over the last couple of years. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just the experience and knowing how aggressive the fires are behaving, I just reacted and relied on the experience that I gained over the years, and from the larger incidents that I've been on before as a Type 1 Ops Chief. So.
What have you been hearing from band members throughout the day?
A lot of concern. They're kind of they're at the evacuation center, the ESS in Hope there. So a lot of them are my family, right? They're really concerned about the community of Boothroyd and Boston Bar and surrounding area. They've obviously been displaced, and they're basically they're afraid, they're scared, right? So it's my job to try to reassure them that we're doing everything we can as BC Wildfire Service and our key partners to ensure that we protect the communities in and around this area. So, but they are rightfully they're afraid.
Mm-hmm. Well, George, we so appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. Thank you for this, and you stay safe.
Thank you.
That's George Campbell, who is a Boothroyd Indian Band counselor, also an incident commander for the Kukupee Creek wildfire with BC Wildfire Service. Chris?
Jason, I want to tell you about some new evacuation orders issued for the West Bank First Nation. This is directly to the north of the W.R. Bennett Bridge that leads from downtown Kelowna onto the west side. There are a number of properties all in the marina area. This is along West Side Road at the bottom of Bear Creek Road. There's a long list of properties. I won't read all of the properties, but you can get the list at cordemergency.ca. This is properties on West Bank First Nation territory placed on evacuation order. People must leave the area immediately. The Central Okanagan Regional District says it is critical that all residents evacuate for their safety and the safety of first responders in the area. So this is just north of the W.R. Bennett Bridge on the west side of Okanagan Lake. We'll keep you posted, of course, as we learn more. Corey Wilden lives on the other side of the lake in the Wilden neighborhood in Kelowna. He and his family left home when the Clifton-McKinley fire broke out last night, sparked, we believe, by embers from the west side. But Corey was also hosting evacuees from West Kelowna when they were all forced to flee. We've reached him in Salmon Arm this afternoon. Corey, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Tell us about what prompted your family to leave the area.
Yeah, well, obviously we're keeping a close eye on it. I work out on the west side, actually on West Bank First Nation land. So coming home at about 5:30, there's a lot of ash and debris in my backyard, picking it out of the pool and things like that. And then that's when we kind of thought, well, maybe we should keep a little bit closer of an eye on things with the way the winds were going and whatnot. And Yeah, like you said, we had friends of ours, a family of 4 and a cat that came to the house, and at about 10 o'clock, we noticed there was a lot of activity outside. Went out and looked on top of the mountain immediately, kind of above our house, and yeah, sure enough, there was flames. So at that point, we weren't evacuated yet, and we weren't about to wait. So we had a rough idea what to do, and we just started making moves.
Your house was pretty full even before you were forced from your home. How are your friends doing after having to leave twice in one night?
Kind of like us. I mean, all things considered, right? We're pretty thankful, and we got everything that can't be replaced with us, and kind of trying to have that attitude at this point is anything in the home can be replaced, right? So it's just making sure our kids are happy and not worrying and just in a good kind of state of mind, and I think that's what we're doing, and also having that other family with us, right? I mean, you're there to talk and kind of check in on each other regularly, so it's been quite helpful having them around.
You're just up the road from where we are, and I think everybody wants to know what's happening in their own neighborhood. Information is hard to come by down at that granular level. Are you able to tell what's going on in Wilden and North Glenmore and North Clifton?
Yeah. There's obviously a couple different Facebook pages and whatnot, right? So my wife has kind of beat on those kind of different sites. And then, to be honest, I've been watching my doorbell cam and our backyard cam like a hawk too, right? Just seeing how things are progressing, and it changes every 5 minutes, it seems like. And about 2 or 3 hours ago now, there was a bunch of fire trucks right outside of our house. So, I mean, wherever we can get information, we're here to get it. We're actively looking, right? So, between social media, radio stations, things like that, and then obviously what we have in our home, we're keeping an eye on it.
Now, Corey, I mentioned you're in Salmon Arm. There's a big music festival happening there this weekend, the Salmon Arm Roots and Blues Festival. How is the smoke in Salmon Arm right now?
The smoke's it's not terrible. Kind of quite a bit came up here in the last little while, but it seems to be blowing by. But other than that, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of people here for the Roots and Blues Festival, and actually my father and mother-in-law volunteer there, and we were planning on coming up for the weekend, right? Not under these circumstances, obviously, but so it's pretty busy around here between that and then a lot of evacuees as well.
Well, it's been really good to connect with you. We hope there's good news coming for you in the next few days. Corey, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Corey Wood, a resident of Wilden, which is in North Kelowna, who has evacuated to Salmon Arm, along with friends who had evacuated to his house from the west side of Kelowna. Jason?
All right, Chris, thank you very much. We've been asking for you to call in to share your thoughts, whatever's happening in your world right now over the last 24 and 48 hours. I do want to head to the phone lines now. We're actually going to go to Ontario, where we have Leanna on the line. Hi, Leanna.
Hi there.
Why did you want to call in?
I'm obviously safe in Ontario, and my heart bleeds for everybody. We were just in BC a couple weeks ago on holidays, and it was very dry and very hot, and you could just see how things could spread. So my heart goes out to everybody. I've got friends in Kelowna and classmates. My concern is, my question actually is just kind of, not even a question. I know you guys are CBC, not an airline. My involvement, or why I'm really paying close attention to it, is my son works in Kamloops, and his girlfriend was supposed to fly out tomorrow morning on a flight leaving at 7:10 a.m. direct into Kelowna. And flights are all been canceled today. The airspace is needed, obviously, for fire airplanes, et cetera. And so far, even though the smoke and the wind and everything, if you look on any of the airlines, Air Canada, WestJet, Swoop, et cetera, nobody is showing their flights are canceled tomorrow morning yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 7 o'clock flight. That's, 11 hours from now. She clearly has no desire to be anywhere near an area where they're telling people to keep away, tourists to keep away, et cetera. I totally understand the implication to an airline if you cancel a flight, because people have plans, they have to be rebooked, et cetera. But she actually waited online for a virtual chat with her airline earlier today to see if she could get moved to the flight to Abbotsford or whatever. And they said, no, there's no changes because your flight hasn't been canceled as of yet.
Yeah, I suppose it's a situation quite touch and go, but you would like to hope you would have a little bit of a heads up in terms of the situation. I've only got a few seconds left here, but have you had a chance, Leanna, to get a sense of how she's feeling?
Well, we actually went ahead and just bought another flight for her to Abbotsford just because it was showing only 3 seats left. So my son's going to drive the other direction, away from the fires instead of into it, just so that they actually could still have this holiday, this time together for 10 days, because they both kind of needed it. So, I mean, she's obviously very grateful, but she just felt very frustrated. I just find it bizarre that the airlines don't have to, I mean, you've been told to keep away. You've been told that the highway is closed because of people heading north and what have you. Yeah. I understand. But holy man, like this, do you think that they would, for safety reasons, say, we're just going to cancel all of tomorrow and let people know that at 3 o'clock so the airline can start to manage what to do, right?
No, it's very true. Thank you, Leanna, for providing that perspective this afternoon. And speaking of how things are moving, Steve, I know it's been obviously very challenging on the roads as well.
It's been tough for sure, especially closer to the McDougall Creek wildfire. That travel advisory has been issued for an over 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland. Traffic is managing to get through northbound to Vernon, BC. But just bear in mind that if you don't need to be on that route, don't be there, and be prepared for any short notice closures. More traffic coming up after the news.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. You are tuned in to a special province-wide broadcast here on CBC Radio 1. Much more coming your way after the world this hour.
Hosting the FIFA World Cup. Or 6 Taylor Swift concerts.
Take a look what you've done.
Which is better for Toronto's economy? Well, take your preconceptions and shake it off, because you're about to hear some fearless number crunching.
That's what people say.
On day 6, tomorrow morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
Shake, shake, shake.
I'm Ian Hannamansing, tonight on The National.
It's been one big stress ball.
Ongoing coverage as wildfires threaten Kelowna and Yellowknife, with Kelowna now under partial evacuation orders. Join us on Canada's newscast tonight at 10:30 in Newfoundland on CBC and CBC Gem.
From CBC News, The World This Hour, I'm Mike Miles. British Columbia officials say there is no doubt more fires will be sparked in the coming days, and that means more evacuation orders.
Please be prepared, have an emergency plan, and a grab-and-go kit ready for you, your family, and your pets.
BC Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma says more than 23,000 people across the province are under evacuation alert. 4,500 people have been ordered to leave, about half of them in Kelowna and surrounding areas. A massive fire there led to a significant loss of property, though officials have yet to release specific numbers. Ma says the firefight is now BC's top priority.
The past 24 hours have been incredibly challenging for the people across the province. I must stress that all areas of the province are facing increased risks due to the current weather forecast and extreme drought.
Sustained winds and dry lightning started new fires overnight, and that is expected to continue. Officials will be giving an update on the fire situation in Yellowknife in a couple of hours. Thousands of residents have been leaving, with some of them arriving in Calgary. Aaron James Flunky Mantla came with his parents, family, and husky puppy Simba. He says it's a relief for all of them to be smoke-free and safe.
So they give you vouchers, and the family vouchers and tickets and a place to stay for the next couple of days. Our family was actually living right inside the red zone. We had to evacuate to our grandparents to stay out of the area. So the forest fire is coming close to our neighborhoods, and that's when we had to evacuate. My best guess will be here at least a full week.
More than 2,300 people from Yellowknife will have landed in Calgary today on 26 flights. Tomorrow, CBC Radio 1 will have a special edition of Cross Country Checkup on the wildfires threatening Yellowknife and Kelowna. The special, hosted by the Sunday Magazine's Pia Chattopadhyay, begins at 1:05 Eastern, 11:05 Mountain Time. Canada is urging Meta to lift its ban on news from its platforms to allow emergency information about the wildfires to be shared. Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez, until recently was the Heritage Minister, says the ban is unacceptable.
We've seen what happened in Australia. I told them this could happen here. They said that it would be different. It's not different. So I'm asking them to go back on their decision and allow people to have access to news and information in Canada.
Meta started blocking news on Facebook and Instagram for all users in Canada earlier this month in response to a new law that requires internet giants to pay for news articles shared on their platform. For up-to-date information you need about evacuations and wildfires across the country, you can visit CBC's text-only site for low-bandwidth use, cbc.ca/lite. That's LITE. Intense forest fires in northern Quebec are still complicating life for people who live and work there. Nearly all of the Billy Diamond Highway has been closed. Hydro-Quebec had to evacuate one of its power stations yesterday because of the heavy smoke. Lauren McCallum reports.
The Billy Diamond Highway is closed from Waswanipi to just outside Radisson. Access roads to Waskaganish, Wamenji, and Namaska have also been shut down, forcing many communities to rely on plane deliveries for supplies. But there are concerns the heavy smoke from the forest fires could prevent those planes from landing. Isabelle Gariepi speaks for Sopfeu.
We have a lot of smoke that are going outside Wamenji and Radisson.
Hydro-Quebec decided to evacuate 100 workers from its LG3 power station on Wednesday. Spokesperson Maxence Huard-Lefebvre says they were taken to its other power station upstream.
We wanted to be sure that there will not be issues to evacuate people with the smoke or the evolution of the fires.
Huard-Lefebvre is hopeful today's rain will help, and he says the utility will decide later today whether its workers will be allowed to return to their posts at LG3. Lauren McCallum, CBC News, Montreal.
And that's your World This Hour. Remember, you can listen to us anytime on our CBC Listen app. For CBC News, I'm Mike Miles.
Good afternoon, I'm Jason D'Souza in Vancouver, and you are tuned in to a special CBC Radio 1 broadcast. We are following the ongoing wildfire situation across the province. We also would love to hear from you this hour of the program. Our phone lines are open. They will remain so as well. Tell us how you're feeling, what you and your family may be going through again. Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950. That's 1-800-825-5950. You can also email us as well on the coast at cbc.ca, on the coast at cbc.ca. And coming up in this half hour, information. It's worth its weight in gold right now, but for newcomers, it can be particularly challenging to get that needed information. We're going to hear more about that in a few minutes' time. First, though, Stephanie Mercier joins us now from our newsroom with some news headlines.
Yeah, Jason, more evacuation orders have been added throughout the afternoon for the rapidly changing fires in the Kelowna area. The latest being more properties for the West Bank First Nation right up to the Bennett Bridge. And there is now also word of a news conference scheduled for 6:15 with BC's Premier. We don't yet know exactly what the Premier will say, but the province could declare a state of emergency. So we'll be watching for that later on this afternoon. And I know you're on top of the situation with the radio special, but we will also have the latest news at 5:30.
Stephanie, thank you very much. CBC Kelowna's Chris Walker is also with us this afternoon. Chris, what are you seeing right now?
Jason, I just, during the newscast, went to the lakeshore here in downtown Kelowna to have a look at what's going on across the lake. I counted 7 homes on fire in the Bear Creek neighborhood. This is just to the north of the W.R. Bennett Bridge. Fully engulfed homes. Didn't see any air support. A very tough situation still happening here in Kelowna as this fire just will not let up, Jason.
Chris, thank you for that update. Yes, certainly difficult to hear. We still do not have exact numbers when it comes to structure damages in West Kelowna and in Kelowna. We will endeavor to bring you that information as we hear about it. You may have heard Stephanie mention also as well, coming up in the next hour, we are going to hear from the Premier. So stay tuned. We'll be with you this entire time. We're also keeping you up to speed on what you need to know as far as highway conditions and road conditions due to the various wildfires across the province. Steve Jung has been keeping his eye on all of that. How is it looking right now, Steve?
Well, Jason, that travel advisory issued for a 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland is still in effect due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is managing to get through on 97 right now. Earlier, we were seeing some very, very heavy delays northbound trying to get to Vernon. That doesn't look to be the case anymore. But just be prepared for short notice closures and avoid that route if you do not need to be on that route. Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Cookabee Creek wildfire, and the Adams Lake Ferry is providing service for evacuees and emergency services personnel in both directions due to the lower East Adams Lake wildfire. The public is prohibited from entering the evacuation order zone, so please keep that in mind. Gun Lake Road near Lillooet is also closed and no detour is available. This is because of the Downton Lake wildfire, one of the Squamish Lillooet wildfires still currently burning. Mission Mountain Road, 1 kilometer north of Lillooet is also closed near the Casper Creek wildfire. More updates coming up shortly.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. It's 8 minutes now past 5 o'clock, past 6 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. And we just heard from CBC Kelowna's Chris Walker about that harrowing update a moment ago. We're going to head back now to Kelowna. Our reporter, Banit Brach, joins us now. Banit, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Good, thank you. We're still out here looking at the situation.
And tell us more specifically, where exactly have we reached you?
Yeah, so we've just driven up to the Magic Estates area. It's like a residential area here higher into the mountainside. I could see some parts of the fire in the distance, and police were here in the area talking to residents. Coming up, I saw people, they're getting their sprinklers out, doing what they can to prevent any more threats. And still just looking up at the sky in front of me, it's still very hazy, gray, lots of smoke. Just earlier on, an hour ago, I was near the lake, and, it's still pretty quiet because we know those boats have been asked to stay off because emergency crews need that lake access. And I was also, chatting with a man there, and he said yesterday he was on the west bank where the fire is now, and he said he heard so many explosions, describing popping noises, and he was left quite concerned. So still, residents are still here kind of looking out into the distance to see what's really happening. And yeah, we know that fire has jumped into the Kelowna side today, which is what we're here for, right?
Very much so. And we just heard Chris Walker talking about him seeing firsthand those homes that are on fire. What is the latest situation in Kelowna?
Yeah, and we with what he's mentioned, we also know that UBC's Okanagan campus in Kelowna had told students to evacuate due to those fires nearby in the Clifton and McKinley areas. The university, really urging people to leave campus immediately. We've also heard today that the airport remains closed so that airspace can be free to fight the fires. So yes, we know that there were flight cancellations and concerns with that as well. And provincial court location in Kelowna is closed today as well, and we heard that in the last hour. And in West Kelowna, we also know that the Okanagan Lake Resort was also engulfed in flames today, and that has been there, developed since the 1970s. So we've been hearing about those significant structural losses, and again, we still need more time to confirm just how many there has been. And despite the devastation, despite the losses, we know that the community is still there to support each other. So, for example, I know I recently heard that Cobb's Bread has been offering evacuees free bread as well here in the area, too.
Beneath, what can we expect for the rest of the day into the evening?
Well, this fire, as we know, is still being described as aggressive, so we're still going to be looking out, seeing what's happening, talking to people here. The weather is dry, it's windy, it's not making things easier. Again, we know that there's that severe thunderstorm watch for the Okanagan Valley and parts of the interior. And with this, more people will likely have to evacuate, and officials say it's important to be prepared and really have those go bags ready if you're on alert. So we are here, we are watching and waiting to see what happens today.
Banit, thank you very much for this.
Thanks.
That is Banit Brach, who is a reporter with CBC British Columbia live in Kelowna. And speaking of live in Kelowna, Chris is back with us now.
Yeah, Jason, people have all kinds of ways of getting emergency information about the fires. My phone is just going off the hook here, and I'm sure that's the case for everybody in this area as we learn whose houses are standing and whose houses are not. For newcomers to this country, though, for people who may not speak English as a first language, that information may be harder to come by. Amina Abu Yassin is an administrator with the Kelowna Islamic Center. She runs the Islamic school and often works with newcomers and is on the line with us this morning. Amina, good morning. Good morning. Good evening. I'm losing track of my days. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you.
Good. What are you hearing from people around you and in the community you work with?
Well, some people have been here for a while. They know the drill. They know what to do. From newcomers, though, there's a lot more anxiety and panic. Like some people have no evacuation alert in their area, but they've left Kelowna altogether. Like there is that panic around it.
How familiar are people you work with, especially newcomers, how familiar are they with the whole notion of wildfires?
Not very much because, it's hard enough for people who understand the language and who've been here in Canada for a while, like they know what to expect, but newcomers haven't had the time to learn the language, and they're not really, like, in their countries mostly, they're not really used to having, like, if we have forest wildfires, our houses are built of cement, so it doesn't really affect people. It just affects, the forests, but not really people, so it's kind of a new concept here.
And can you tell us about the networks that newcomers use to get information about situations like this, whether it's through the mosque or social media? Can you help us, or just by word of mouth, can you help us understand how that information travels?
I would say they would be connected to community agencies that would help them with that. Also, yes, the mosque has a mailing list. They send out information. Sometimes, though, they send it in English only, so some people are left isolated. They do have their social media pages, though, and so hopefully, the information will travel that way. People who speak the other language would be able to translate, hopefully.
Now, in some other countries, police and emergency authorities are not always as benevolent as they can be here, especially in situations like this. How do you think some newcomers might react to emergency evacuations, police and fire at their door?
Yeah, that would be a tough one. Some people would be very traumatized and triggered because in their countries, they live in war-torn countries. They would have left their countries because of things like this, police coming to their door, taking them away, their families never seeing them again. So it will be very difficult, I believe, for these people when they see police at their door, especially if they don't know what they're saying and they're not really aware of tactical evacuation and how it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
You sent out an email to your contact list. What did you say in that email?
I told them that the mosque is open for people who have been evacuated. They can go there. Also, telling them to try to listen to authorities because, again, in their countries, authorities are not always, like you said, not always very benevolent and trying to help their people. So just trying to, create that kind of shift in their mindset and saying that, no, we have to listen to authorities because if we don't, our lives would be at risk, and also the firefighters that are trying to help us, if we don't listen to authorities, their lives would also be at risk. So it's and also giving them definitions of what is an evacuation alert, what is an evacuation order, what do you do when, they tell you this phrase, what does it mean? And also directing them to the website where, they can kind of know what their area, if their area is in danger. These are intelligent people, needless to say, but English is not their first language, and so it could be hard to get that information if you don't give it to them in their language.
Amina, it's been really good to talk to you. I hope everybody is safe. Thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Amina Abu Yassin is an administrator with the Kelowna Islamic Center. She runs the Islamic School and works with newcomers to Canada. Jason?
Chris, thank you very much. It's 16 minutes now past 5 o'clock, past 6 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone, and we are still waiting for more information on how how many structures have been lost in West Kelowna so far. Zach Finney-Moore believes his childhood home is gone. The CBC's Tom Popick spoke with him for more.
Just soaking in the last bit. It's just where I grew up.
When do you think you'll get a chance to go back?
I think my house is gone.
Is it close to the tree line?
Yeah.
You're up there with your family as well? Where are they?
I don't know. I think they went to Penticton for the night or something. But I couldn't leave.
When did you leave?
I actually came back from Victoria to get here. I wasn't able to get back home in time, but yeah.
Have you talked to your family?
Yeah, I've been in touch with them. They're safe and doing good.
What did they tell you?
Just that not to go up. I've tried a couple times, but it's not safe, so I'm just gonna stay where I am and hope for the best.
What do you think you're gonna do next?
I honestly have no idea. I haven't really thought that far. Just kind of see if my house survived, and if not, go from there.
That's Zach Finney-Moore speaking with CBC's Tom Popick in West Kelowna. Chris, such heartbreaking tape to listen to there, and I know you saw firsthand other homes on fire. Maybe you can give us a perspective of what it's like right now where you are.
Well, there's a lot more heartbreak to come, Jason. As I went down just a moment ago to City Park in downtown Kelowna, there was a crowd gathered along the boardwalk, along the lake shore, and everybody looking over at the west side. And I counted 7 homes on fire just then, just at the moment, all in the same neighborhood. I have family in that area, and I wasn't able to tell if it was their house or not, but it's still pretty smoky. But people really kind of aghast at what they were seeing, and everybody talking as well. You know, people were watching the situation right across the lake on the west side. But when I talked to people briefly, they were more worried at the moment. Everybody raised the McKinley Beach North Clifton fire into the north of Kelowna, because the wind has really picked up in the last few minutes here, and we have stories of people finding warm embers 4 or 5 kilometers away from the kind of the front of that fire. So very worrying situation, really dramatic situation as well. And as night falls, it becomes more dramatic because you can see so much more clearly what's burning. And this is still a very active fire, very intense fire behavior right across the bridge from downtown Kelowna. And I fear many dozens of people will have lost homes in the last 24 hours. Some are losing them right now.
Well, Chris, thank you for that. And once again, we are asking you to share your thoughts. If you perhaps are already under evacuation order, or if you are on an alert right now, we'd love to hear from you. You can share your thoughts on what the last 24, 48 hours have been like, just the last couple hours even. We know how fluid this situation is. You send us an email, onthecoast@cbc.ca. That's onthecoast@cbc.ca. You can also give us a call toll-free around the province. 1-800-825-5950. That is 1-800-825-5950. We're also keeping you up to speed on how the highways are looking right now, the road conditions. Steve Jung joins us now for that.
Jason, Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukupee Creek wildfire. No updates on that one yet. And a travel advisory remains in place for a 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is managing to get through. We're not seeing the same delays on the road that we were earlier in the afternoon, so the northbound road to get to to Vernon is looking quite clear. This is the primary route people will be taking to leave the area if they've been ordered to evacuate. So once again, bear in mind that travel advisory is in effect for both directions. If you do not need to be on that route, do not drive on that route. And if you are currently on Highway 97, be prepared for short notice closures. The Adams Lake Ferry is providing service for evacuees and emergency services in both directions due to the lower East Adams Lake wildfire. The public is prohibited from entering the evacuation order zones. Please keep that in mind. Long Lake Road in Knutsford, BC, near Kamloops, also closed due to the Rossmore Lake wildfire, so keep that in mind. And if taking a look at what we're dealing with here in the Lower Mainland, in North Vancouver, a crash eastbound on Fern Street at Lillooet Road is blocking both left turn lanes. And in Vancouver, there's a crash in the only eastbound lane available on West 41st Avenue between Cambie Street and Oak. More traffic coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. And, you know, people have also been on the move in Canada's north because of dangerous wildfires there. Yesterday, Kira Young and her family made the long evacuation journey from Yellowknife to Edmonton. And today, the 17-year-old left them behind to fly solo to Victoria. Kira is a boarding school student at Pearson College in Metchosin, which is just outside of Victoria. She'll be starting school there soon. And Kira has been good enough to join us now on the line for more. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Thanks so much for taking the time with us. I wonder if you can take us through what that evacuation was like for you and your family out of Yellowknife.
Yeah, for sure. So we got the evacuation order pretty suddenly a couple days ago on August 16th. And we were told that we would have until today, Friday at noon, to get out one way or another, whether that be on a plane or by car. So my family immediately started packing up, trying to figure out what can fit into the back of our car. Trying to figure out what do we need for this drive and what is irreplaceable, what has sentimental value that we can bring with us. Very shortly after beginning to pack, we discovered that my mom, who is a physician, would have to stay in Yellowknife. So that somewhat altered our travel plans. At the time of the evacuation order, many people started driving out of Yellowknife. We have a single lane highway, just one that goes towards Alberta. So it was very, very congested. So we decided that we would wait till the next day at 5 a.m. to get going. And that we did. So my brother, my dad, and my dog, and everything could fit in the car. We started driving on the highway towards Edmonton, and my mom stayed behind to help with the evacuation of the hospital. And it was quite the journey.
What did you see when you were on the highway, Kira?
Well, for the first stretch, we could see flame on the side of the road. We were very lucky. It wasn't nearly as precarious as some of the evacuations for the other communities down south, like Hay River and Fort Smith. But there were flames, there were embers, there was very, very thick smoke. We all had to wear KN95s in the car. And it was just a very, very eerie feeling driving down the highway.
And it's a feeling that I know a lot of folks across BC are feeling right now as they have been issued evacuation orders and in some cases evacuation alerts. How are you feeling about the state of your city right now? Are you still optimistic given what you've seen, or just walk us through how you're feeling?
Well, it's a really mixed bag right now. We're seeing lots of photos of the very, very hard work that the firefighters in the city and the military are putting in right now, the amazing lines of defenses that they're putting up. But, we're also seeing that the forecast is not looking good. There's not a lot of rain, and the winds are going to be pushing this fire, which is only 15 kilometers away from the outskirts of the city, towards it in the coming days. So, I'm worried for my home. I'm worried for my city. And I'm worried for everyone that hasn't made it out yet. But I'm also feeling very, very grateful and very, very hopeful that all of the effort that's being put in right now is going to pay off.
Kira, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us, and all the best. Wishing you and your family all the best.
Of course. Thanks so much.
That's Kira Young, who arrived in Victoria just this afternoon after evacuating from her family's home in Yellowknife. Let's head to the phone lines now. We're going to go to Abbotsford. That is where Paul is calling from. Hi, good afternoon, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing very well. How are you? What's your situation like today?
Well, I'm not really in a desperate situation, but we were expecting to be, we live in West Kelowna, and we were expecting to be informed that we had to evacuate today, and that is indeed what happened. So we were ready. I dropped off some stuff in Penticton with a friend that I wanted to save just in case, and headed down to Coquihalla so I wouldn't have to go through Kelowna, because the traffic in Kelowna and going to Vernon is pretty much impossible to navigate.
What did you see?
Okay, so last night we saw the fire from our patio. We had a good view. We saw it go down the mountain towards the west bank and towards the lake, and then I went to bed, and overnight the sparks jumped the lake and went to the Kelowna side, and that's how all that stuff got started.
You know, we've been hearing from residents who are in Kelowna right now whose properties have just been issued either an evacuation order or alert. Given what you experienced firsthand, Paul, what are you thinking about today?
Well, I'm thinking that, you know, we need a lot of good luck. I mean, I know those firefighters do what they can, and they put on a brave face, and they work very hard, but we need cooperation. We need the wind to die down. We need, you know, cooler temperatures, and we need rain. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to get a handle on this, I don't think.
Well, Paul, good to hear that you and your family are safe. Thank you for calling in and sharing your perspective.
Thank you. Bye.
That was Paul calling in from Abbotsford. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. You can give us a call, toll free around the province, 1-800-825-5950, 1-800-825-5950. You can also write to us on the coast at cbc.ca. And if you haven't heard, Premier David Eby is expected to speak at around 6:15 Pacific time this afternoon. We will be with you live here on CBC Radio 1. Steve Jung is also with us, keeping you up to speed on the roads.
Jason, we're still not getting any additional updates on this Highway 1 closure. It remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukupee Creek wildfire, but a travel advisory has been issued for an over 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is managing to get through, unlike earlier in the afternoon. Northbound to Vernon looks quite clear, but just bear in mind, if you don't need to drive on that route, please don't be there, and anyone who plans to take Highway 97 to leave Kelowna, please be prepared for short notice closures that could very well happen as the evacuations continue. The Adams Lake Ferry in both directions is providing service for evacuees of the wildfires and emergency services personnel. Due to the lower East Adams Lake wildfire, the public is prohibited from entering the evacuation order zone. More updates coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Steve, thank you very much for that. You are listening to a province-wide CBC radio special. I'm Jason D'Souza in Vancouver. We're also joined by Chris Walker live from Kelowna. Much more coming your way. Stay tuned. You can also stream live cbc.ca/listen or on the CBC Listen app. It's time now for the BC News.
This is CBC News from Vancouver. Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Mercier. Wildfires across the province exploded in size overnight, fanned by gusty winds and hot, dry conditions. And the situation has been volatile today. BC's Premier has called a news conference in Vancouver this evening at 6:15. We don't yet know what he plans to say, but there is speculation that the province may call a state of emergency due to the rapidly evolving wildfire situation. There are more than 4,800 people under evacuation orders across the province and 23,000 under evacuation alerts. Those numbers keep changing as more neighborhoods are added due to fires across BC. Some of those fires reached a rank of 6, classified as a blow-up or conflagration overnight. That's marked by violent behavior, possible fireballs, and independent spot fires breaking out. Cliff Chapman is with the BC Wildfire Service.
I can say from experience, I've been in BC Wildfire Service my entire career, over 20 years, and there's only a few dates that stick out for me as dates that will always be engraved in my head. Yesterday is one of those days. We knew the weather was coming. We knew it was going to have a big impact on the fires, and it did. And now we're seeing the catastrophic impact that fires can have as they interface with communities, critical infrastructure, and humans.
He says a note of thanks is due to all the people who worked through the night to keep people safe and protect homes. In the Kelowna area, UBC Okanagan was evacuated today, along with surrounding neighborhoods. The airport is closed to commercial flights, and officials say a significant number of structures have been lost. The exact number won't be known for days. Witnesses report seeing homes in West Kelowna along Okanagan Lake in flames. Among the confirmed losses, the historic Lake Okanagan Resort. West Kelowna resident Les York says he watched from a boat on the lake as the resort burned this morning.
But at that point, there's about 4 older apartment buildings on the resort property. The lowest one, the top half of it, was completely on fire.
York says he could hear explosions as flames engulfed the buildings, and he saw numerous other lakeside properties destroyed. Elsewhere, hundreds of properties and recreational sites in the Fraser Valley and Thompson-Nicola regions have been ordered to evacuate or to prepare to do so as the Kookaby Creek wildfire spreads. It's about 16 kilometers northwest of Boston Bar and covers an estimated 88 square kilometers. In the East Kootenay, the Horse Thief Creek fire north of Panorama is pushing past specially built guards. As the CBC's Corey Bullock reports, leaders are asking for calm as more than 900 people are on evacuation alert.
People just need to be calm and let the agencies do their job.
Al Miller is the mayor of Invermere. He's asking residents to remain calm and vigilant as weather continues to challenge crews on the Horse Thief Creek fire. On Thursday morning, an evacuation alert was expanded to include the Panorama area and more than 900 homes. A precautionary measure to make sure that residents are prepared should an order come down.
Being prepared is the best advice I can certainly give. And that's the intent of this whole thing.
The Horse Thief Creek fire is nearly 4,000 hectares, and while crews have made some progress with fire guards, the weather's not helping. Jean Strong is an information officer with the BC Wildfire Service.
Over the last few days, we've seen those guards be challenged.
Residents are being asked to prepare themselves and sign up for the regional district's evacuation notification system regardless of proximity to wildfire. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
More evacuation orders have been issued for the North Shuswap, including the entire community of Salista. Residents of Scotch Creek and Lee Creek, impacted by the Lower East Adams Lake fire, are now forced to leave their homes. Information Officer Forrest Tower says the Bush Creek East fire is also threatening a lumber mill on the west side of the lake.
It is moving south and has kind of burned close to and around the Interfor mill in the area. There are structure protection set up on the mill site, as well as crews and structure protection personnel responding to that side of the fire. The structure protection resources are set up and turned on. I do know we've pulled back resources.
Tower says it's possible support crews will have to abandon the mill if conditions don't improve. Most tourists cleared out of the area earlier this week. And on a positive note, progress has been made fighting the Rossmore Lake fire about 10 kilometers south of Kamloops. Forrest Tower says conditions were expected to be much worse today.
We have had definitely some challenges on the southern flank of that fire in the past week. When and if those northerly winds head down towards Kamloops, definitely there's a potential for an increase in fire behavior. Those winds actually haven't developed quite that far down south yet.
An evacuation order issued Thursday still covers 40 properties, including some in the Lac Lejeune area. Provincial officials are warning fire crews need to do their work without unnecessary distractions. Forests Minister Bruce Ralston says that includes people flying their drones.
I want to say again, drones are a significant hazard to air crews fighting fires. It is illegal and irresponsible to fly them in fire areas. Along the same line, this is not the time to be boating on lakes where air tankers are refilling with water.
Ralston says it's also important to keep roads clear for crews and equipment. And the Minister of Emergency Preparedness is asking people today not to travel to the central interior or the southeast during this time of increased risk. And a reminder for anyone affected by the fires, you can get information updates on the CBC News app and our website, cbc.ca/BC. And that's
You're listening to CBC Radio 1 in British Columbia. This is a special province-wide broadcast following the evolving wildfire situation in this province. I'm Chris Walker in Kelowna, joined by Jason D'Souza in Vancouver. We would like to go straight to the phones as we pick up this half hour. Pat is on the line in West Kelowna. Pat, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you just tell us what's happened to you in the last hour?
Well, first off, I'd like to give a big shout out to the firefighters. They're doing their best. We're in the West Kelowna Estates. We just had to drop a dog off at our friend's place because they couldn't get to it. They were evacuated, and we stopped at the theaters down below by the Dairy Queen and looked over at our house where they all are, and they're all just burning there right now. So we lost our RV yesterday, and it looks like probably missing our house tonight. And yeah, pretty humbling thing, but I know the firefighters are doing their best, and I wanted to thank them for that.
What's that like? I mean, I can't even imagine what's going through your head. It's surreal.
Well,
it must be very difficult.
For me, it's like it's pretty hard, but you know, I can hold my feelings.
Oh, Pat, you still there with us? Well, you heard there from Pat, who was just going over the W.R. Bennett Bridge from Kelowna to West Kelowna and saw his house burning down. And as I was there just a few minutes ago, I counted 7 homes in that same area engulfed in flames. Jason Brolin is the fire chief for West Kelowna and is on the line with us this afternoon. Chief, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris.
What's the latest on fire behavior in the area that Pat just told us about? This is the Bear Creek Road, Parkview Road area. Can you help us understand what's happening there?
We are pouring all of our efforts into that area this afternoon, Chris, but things are not going well, and it is just devastating to hear this gentleman talk about losing his house, but at the same time thank my men and women. We're doing everything we can. This fire is powerful. This fire will not stop. This wind is carrying the fire in ways that you only could imagine. But we are on the ground hammering away at this thing, putting equipment, putting people at risk to try and get a handle on it. But Chris, it has not been a good day, and I don't expect it will be a good night.
It's very hard to get kind of granular information about individual neighborhoods. Are there other places, Jason, that you're worried about right now? Other places where you're hammering these neighborhoods trying to save people's homes?
Yes, this is happening across the community. It's happening on West Side Road. It is happening in West Kelowna Estates. It's happening in Rose Valley. And we're, believe it or not, as much as we're sending all of our resources there, we're also trying to make plans. And the call has gone out for more help for neighborhoods like Smith Creek and Palace Ridge. It is unprecedented.
The beginning of night means the end of air support. Can you help us understand how night changes what you can do?
Yeah, things become more difficult at night. Obviously, the cover of darkness just makes everything that much harder. We do lose that air support, but air support has been challenging today because of the smoke conditions that we've been experiencing. But yeah, it just makes the job that much more complex. And, the fire looks worse. It looks like it's closer. It becomes very dramatic. And I understand it's scary for people. I really do. We are going to be in for another scary night.
You and I spoke first about this situation early yesterday morning. Help us understand how this has evolved compared to what you thought it would be like.
Well, we knew that, there is always the potential for a worst case scenario. And certainly many of our discussions focused around what that might be, our preparations focused around what that might be, but there's never enough time. And we can never have enough resources. We used the time we had to make sure that we were getting people ready to get out of the way. And, as I've said before today, I desperately hope that people followed those instructions. We don't know that yet because we're still consumed with trying to stop this fire. And, our evacuation alerts and orders are expanding by the hour. People need to take this seriously. This is as bad as it gets. this is the real deal.
The wind you mentioned, I was out and we, the wind is really blowing now out of the north. I don't know how much you know about the situation on the Kelowna side of things. Can you shed any light on what's happening in the North Clifton, McKinley Beach, North Glenmore areas?
I can't speak to it, Chris, but what I can say is that our response to this fire as an event as a whole is all very well coordinated out of the Regional Emergency Operations Center. We are sharing resources back and forth literally by the minute in terms of, whether they're needed on this side of the bridge desperately or whether they're needed on the other side of the bridge. And we're moving resources across the region to try and get the maximum effect. But, the fire continues to outflank us.
Chief, as you say, another difficult night ahead. Thank you to you and your crews, and I hope you can all, most of all, stay safe and keep people safe. Thanks for joining us again tonight.
Thanks, Chris. Take care.
Jason Brolin is the fire chief in West Kelowna. As you heard him say, they are fighting this fire in neighborhoods in Rose Valley, in the Bear Creek Road area, all up and down West Side Road. It's not just one place where houses are burning down. It's multiple places. And as you heard him say, a very difficult situation. And we will, of course, keep you posted. We've been having questions from listeners about what they can do. There's a lot of people who are not in an evacuation zone, and they want to help. And there have been a lot of questions for volunteers. And if we do have the EOC back, we'll ask them that question in more detail. But I do know that because this is an emergency, volunteers have to be accredited. And so it's not just that people can show up and volunteer at an emergency social services center. There's training involved, and the EOC is running that. So we will try to find better and other ways that people can help each other through the Okanagan Valley. Jason?
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Just completely and utterly heartbreaking hearing from Pat earlier, who called in to let us know he lost his RV yesterday and just an hour ago his house. And then hearing, of course, from the fire chief there, these wildfires, I should say, having far-reaching impacts across the province, including on the roads and the highways. Steve Jung has been tracking it all and joins us now.
Well, Jason, Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukupee Creek wildfire. The travel advisory issued for an over 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland still remains in effect. This is due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is getting through now, not seeing the same delays that we were at the beginning of the afternoon. But again, just a reminder, if you do not need to be on this route, please do not be driving there. And anyone who plans to take this route out of Kelowna as the evacuations continued, please be prepared for short notice closures. Gun Lake Road near Lillooet is closed due to the Squamish-Lillooet wildfires. The Downton Lake wildfire specifically, no detour is currently available, and the Mission Mountain Road 1 kilometer north of Lillooet is also closed. It's in that same sort of general area. This is near the Casper Creek wildfire. We're getting reports of a rollover crash westbound on Highway 3 at Old Hope Princeton Way. Heavy delays forming as a result of that. Traffic is managing to squeeze by. We'll keep an eye on all of that and more updates coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. And a programming note as well to our listeners. You are listening to a special broadcast this afternoon across the province here on CBC Radio 1. It will also be an extended broadcast as well. You may have heard in the news, Premier David Eby is expected to speak at around 6:15 Pacific time. We will bring you that press conference live. We will also be extending this program to continue to hear from you. So you can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950. That's a toll-free province-wide number, 1-800-825-5950. You can also send us an email on the coast at cbc.ca. Here is one of the calls we received to our talkback line.
Hi, I just wanted to call and vent about what a day I've had. I was working at the fire camp for the Adams Lake Complex fires, and as some of your listeners may know, that whole area has been on evacuation order as of this afternoon, but it gets even better. I can't go home because my house in Kelowna is on evacuation order. So I met up with my family, who's also on evacuation order, in Kamloops, and we're headed north. I just want everybody out there to stay safe and take care. Yeah, I know we have a car full of 5 cats and 3 dogs. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that call. And yes, please be safe and take care. If you would like to give us a call, let us know how you're doing with the situation you're in. Once again, province-wide, that number is 1-800-825-5950. And the McDougall Creek wildfire suddenly came down to the western edge of Okanagan Lake late yesterday. Then, remarkably, it jumped across the lake on the east side and sparked on the northern side of Knox Mountain. Tyler Spence is the manager of Kelowna Bike Rentals on the east side of Okanagan Lake at the base of Knox Mountain Park and joins us now on the line for more. Hi there, Tyler.
Hey, how are you tonight?
I am doing well. Thank you for taking the time with us. What is the situation like right now where you are?
So I'm actually at home, nice and safe and sound. We're on the east side of Kelowna, East Kelowna. But the business itself is right at the bottom of Knox Mountain, and it is now in the alert zone.
And what's your sense in terms of how far flames may be away from the business?
It's definitely, with the wind coming up, it's definitely...
The firefight going on right now is as significant today as it was last night.
What was the day like for you from the beginning to what it ended up being?
So, stayed up late last night watching everything from this side of the lake, and then when it lit up on the Dilworth area, that chunk of Knox Mountain, it had me concerned. So I stayed up most of the night and then got a little bit of sleep, got up first thing in the morning and went down there to make sure everything was okay and contact my staff, try and figure out what I'm going to do for the day. Of course, we've got a lot of tourism in town, so had to reach out to them that were booking some bikes, and most of them wanted to cancel. A couple of them wanted to go for a ride. So I facilitated that ride, but for the most part, they came back really quick and said, enough's enough. We've closed, and we're obviously going to stay closed until the evacuation alert or order is rescinded, of course. But just the general around the area, a lot of people standing there by the lake watching what's going on. A couple of people going up Knox Mountain to see what's going on. And, just the overall, concern that it could definitely roll this direction. And now with that alert in place, it's starting to become a reality.
I know Kelowna Bike Rentals is a special bike rental shop because it's owned by charities. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Tyler?
Yeah, you bet. So there's 2 local charities in town, Elevation Outdoors and Chris Adaptive Adventures. Chris Adaptive deals with a lot of people that require adaptive gear. So they have programs for people, paraplegics, quadriplegics, cognitive, abilities and stuff. And then Elevation Outdoors deals with youth. So they put a lot of effort into the youth in the areas. So 2 fantastic agencies. And then with those 2 combined, they have a lot of bikes and adaptive bikes. So then we can actually rent bikes for paraplegics or quadriplegics, and we have tandem recumbents that you can rent and have a passenger in the back seat. So, it goes a long ways, and we raise a lot of money for those 2 agencies, and they do a fantastic job in the community. So, it's a shame that we have to close, but hey, emergencies are emergencies, and we will get back to it and raise more money for these charities very soon.
All right. Well, Tyler, we will leave it there for now. Thanks very much for taking our call, and stay safe. All the best.
Will do. Thank you.
That's Tyler Spence, who is the manager of Kelowna Bike Rentals on the east side of Okanagan Lake at the base of Knox Mountain Park in Kelowna. 10 minutes now to 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. Here's Chris.
Jason, we have new evacuation alerts to tell you about, this time on the south side of the bridge. This is in West Kelowna. So this is the Casaloma area, Casaloma Road, and there are others as well. So if you come off the bridge, earlier we told you about an evacuation order on the north side of that shore. This is on the south side of that shore. Now, the implication of that, of course, is that they're worried about this fire moving south over Highway 97, including the W.R. Bennett Bridge. So the evacuation alert is posted on the Central Okanagan Emergency website, cordemergency.ca. It includes all the addresses in the Lakeview Heights area, but this raises new concerns, Jason, around the viability of keeping the bridge and that highway, that critical link, the only link between Kelowna and West Kelowna open, and we are going to see if we can get more information about the possibility of that bridge closing, and if not, how they'll keep it open. So we're going to continue to watch that. Now, back here on this side of the lake, hundreds of homes are on evacuation alert and order in the North Glenmore neighborhood of Kelowna. The homes are being threatened by the Clifton-McKinley fire. The CBC's Zamir Karim is currently on Yates and Dallas Road, an area on evacuation alert. And Zamir, it's literally a little too close to home. You're just around the corner from my house.
Yeah, and I'm not too far away from my home as well, Chris. And I don't know if you can hear through the phone here, but there are helicopters overhead that are battling the blaze up in the Wilden neighborhood. I had a chance to talk to some people in the neighborhood over the last little bit, and they're all preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Spoke with one gentleman who was protecting a particularly important tree on his property. It was a gift from his father when he moved into this home on Mowbray Street 31 years ago. And when I asked him about the importance of the tree, it was the thing that he wanted to protect most of all. What I'm also hearing from and seeing from the neighborhood here, Chris, is that homes are preparing for the worst in a way that many homes have set up sprinklers on their roofs and are continuing to douse their properties to try and make any potential flames that, if they were to come through, that they would give their houses a fighting chance to survive.
Now, obviously, if there are helicopters overhead and they're working on that fire to the north, do you have any sense as to how close that fire is to the neighborhood you're in?
Well, Chris, it's just over on the other side of the hill. I'm going to have to venture an estimate of about 2 to 3 kilometers away from where I am on the other side of this hill here. The area, like you mentioned earlier, is still on evacuation alert, and most people have remained in their homes in the community. They are prepared. The families that I have talked to, they are prepared to leave given the order, but they're trying to do their best, and they're trying to do their best to make sure that they don't have to.
Zamir, I hope you can stay on this for us. Thanks very much for the update.
Hey, no problem, Chris. Thanks.
The CBC's Zamir Karim in Glenmore in Kelowna. Just to give you a sense of the geography there, between where Zamir is and where the fire is, there is Knox Mountain Park East. That is a large series of hills, heavily forested and very dry. So obviously, Jason, some real worry in the North Glenmore area tonight.
Absolutely, Chris. And Steve Jung is with us now with an update on traffic.
Jason, we're still watching a lot of the same closures that we've been dealing with for most of this afternoon. That's really going to cause a bit of an impact as people try and escape those wildfires. Highway 1 remains closed between Hope and Lytton due to the Kukupee Creek wildfire, so keep that in mind. That travel advisory was issued for an over 60-kilometer stretch of Highway 97 from south of Coldstream to Peachland. This is, of course, due to the out-of-control McDougall Creek wildfire. Traffic is getting through, and northbound traffic to Vernon is looking clear at this time. Unlike earlier in the day, we were seeing some heavy delays on that stretch of the highway. Just a reminder, if you do not need to be on that route, please don't be driving there. And for anyone who plans to take Highway 97 to get out of Kelowna and as the evacuations continue, please bear in mind and be prepared for short notice closures. The Adams Lake Ferry is providing service for evacuees and emergency services personnel in both directions as the lower East Adams Lake wildfire continues continues to burn. The public is prohibited from entering the evacuation order zone. And just taking a look at some other incidents around the region, there's a rollover crash, what looks to be a rollover crash westbound on Highway 3 at Old Hope Princeton Way. Heavy delays there. Traffic is managing to squeeze by. And here in the Lower Mainland, there is a crash in North Vancouver, eastbound on Fern Street at Lillooet Road, blocking both left turn lanes, and a crash in Vancouver in the only eastbound lane on West 41st Avenue between Cambie Street and Oak. More traffic coming up soon.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. You are tuned into CBC Radio 1 for this special province-wide afternoon show. It's an extended one as well. We'll be with you for the next hour. I'm Jason D'Souza in Vancouver, joined alongside by Chris Walker in Kelowna. Chris, I've been saying it throughout the day. It's been a long day for you. I wonder if I can just get your thoughts on how it's unfolded so far from what you've seen in Kelowna.
Well, with your permission, how about 2 days? Because
sure, absolutely.
Yesterday morning, we came in to do our morning show here in Kelowna, and we got word of a fire that was 68 hectares on the bench up above West Kelowna, 12 kilometers into the woods. We didn't, frankly, think much of it. The fire chief knew better. He told us this was going to be a problem, and sure enough, it has been. What I'm struck by is just the sheer explosiveness of this fire. It has grown in ways that I think belie our imaginations, many of us. Even here where we're used to wildfires, and I've been covering wildfires for 15 years in this province, and this is something like I've never seen. And now we think it may be starting to threaten critical infrastructure. The W.R. Bennett Bridge is now in the middle, in between an order and an alert. So this, and as you heard from the fire chief, we're just getting started here tonight, and there is going to be a lot more heartache for people who are losing their homes, and a lot more work for fire officials, emergency officials, and for just the community to keep each other safe and to put each other up in lodging. And it's there's a long night ahead, Jason, I fear.
Chris, thank you very much for that. And yes, we will be with you for the next hour for this special province-wide broadcast. You're getting us at 105.1 FM in Alert Bay, 88.9 FM in Kelowna, 90.5 FM in Esquimalt. And we'll remind you that Premier David Eby is expected to speak around 6:15 Pacific time. We're going to take you live to that press conference. For our radio audience, you are going to stay with us. We're going to continue to take your calls and your emails. For people who are watching us right now on the CBC website, on TikTok, and on YouTube, host Michelle Gassou will take over with the 6 o'clock news. The video will take the Premier, though, live as well. And as I mentioned, we are going to be continuing to take your calls. My thanks to everyone who has taken the time to call in to share their experiences, to walk us through what the last 48 to 24 hours has been like. Our phone lines remain open, so feel free to give us a call.
The city has destroyed homes, forcing thousands to flee.
It was like 100 years of firefighting all at once in one night. Night turned to day because of the orange glow of the clouds. And the fire that was happening. There was a significant number of structures that were lost last night. The firefight going on right now is as significant today as it was last night.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Gassou. Anita is on assignment. We will take you live in a few moments to Premier David Eby. It's expected a province-wide state of emergency will be declared. But first, to the situation unfolding in West Kelowna, where fire officials are describing scenes unlike any they've seen before. Let's take you live now to Brady Strachan, who leads us off tonight. Brady, incredibly smoky views behind you now. Take us through just how this began to threaten the community.
Yeah, Michelle, last night, as many people have seen the photos and the video of the fire just up on the crests above homes, and from the Kelowna side looking over to West Kelowna, seeing the fires burning trees and structures. Today, the winds were stronger this morning, but have died down, and now the smoke is really settling in here. There's ash that has been kind of slowly falling down upon us here. I'm at the evacuee reception center in West Kelowna, where people are coming to check and see if they can get a hotel room or meal vouchers and that. And so speaking to people about the ordeal that they've been through the past 24 hours, many people are worried about their homes. They're worried about pets that they weren't able to bring back, and some people are worried that they may have lost everything.
I think my house is gone. I actually came back from Victoria to get here. I wasn't able to get back home in time, but I've tried a couple times, but it's not safe, so I'm just gonna stay where I am and hope for the best.
And we know, Michelle, that there are some lost structures in this fire. In fact, we have photo confirmation that the Okanagan Lake Resort, which is a very well-known resort on the west side of Okanagan Lake, their structures there have burned in that fire. The fire also jumped over the lake to Kelowna, and today there's a fire emergency on the other side of the lake, with several neighborhoods having evacuation orders, and the University of British Columbia just recently having tactical evacuations and asking people there to leave. So there's a lot happening here in the Kelowna area with these aggressive fires.
Brady, an incredibly difficult time for people there. What are some of the other evacuees telling you?
Michelle, it's exhaustion from having to sleep in your car last night and then not being able to sleep because all you can see is the fires burning above your neighborhood. People coming here and having to wait in long lines in order to register and see if they can get a hotel. So we spoke to some people about, just the frustrations and the emotions of being out of their homes with this fire emergency going on.
I've talked to lots of people here last night that lost their homes. So Traders Cove, I guess it's gone. People were jumping in the water, just like Hawaii. So yeah, it's been a nightmare.
Where did you go yesterday?
Right here, to watch my house to see whether it's going to burn.
And of course, Michelle, as you heard in that clip, fire officials are still very wary of the weather, of this extreme fire behavior. And if the winds do pick up again, there's concern that there could be more structure loss. We still don't know how many structures have been confirmed to be lost, but we know that some have. And so that is on the minds of everybody here in the Kelowna area. Michelle?
Brady Strachan live in West Kelowna for us tonight. Brady, thank you for your reporting. We'll check back with you later there.
Thanks,
for more,
Michelle.
we'll bring in Janella Hamilton. She's been tracking the latest from the province and emergency management. Janella, for those who are evacuating, where are they being told to go?
Well, Michelle, at this point, the regional district is asking evacuees to contact friends and family because hotels, motels, and other tourism operations in the area are at capacity. As for evacuation centers, we heard Brady talk a little bit about it. For those in Kelowna, a reception center has been set up at the Salvation Army on Sutherland Drive. Evacuees from West Kelowna who live south of Traders Cove can go to the information center at Royal LePage Place on Cameron Road. And for those who live north of Traders Cove, a center has been set up at Cal Tire Place on 43rd Avenue in Vernon. Everyone covered by an evacuation alert is asked to prepare or be prepared to leave at a moment's notice.
And Janella, we also heard from officials about a harrowing series of events last night, a rescue of people who did not heed those evacuation orders.
That's right, Michelle. West Kelowna Fire Chief Jason Brolin says residents who chose not to leave endangered the lives of first responders.
We had people trapped. That's the fire chief's worst nightmare. Those emergency responders were trapped because they were rescuing members of the public who had chosen not to leave.
The BC Wildfire Service says those who defied the evacuation orders put the lives of police and firefighters at risk. Officials are reminding residents now is not the time to ignore an evacuation order, with the wildfire continuing to spread and burn aggressively. Officials are also urging anyone in the area not to use boats to access the evacuation zone and to keep drones out of the skies, as they are a significant hazard to fire crews fighting the fires. People are also being told not to travel to the central Okanagan area or return to their homes to see if they've been damaged. It is still too dangerous.
Our Janella Hamilton. Thanks, Janella. And for a wider look at the situation across BC, 165 wildfires are still burning out of control. Evacuation orders have been issued and expanded throughout the day. Columbia-Shuswap Regional District has issued an evacuation order for all of Lee Creek and Scotch Creek. An evacuation order is in effect for approximately 11 properties, and the Scotch Creek Bridge has been closed. Fires are spreading along either side of that crossing, blocking off all road access. The Columbia-Shuswap Regional District is transporting people out of the area by boat, and firefighters have had to retreat, leaving sprinklers on. Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the conditions in this province. Darius, we heard warnings. This would be one of the most challenging days BC has seen. What are you tracking now?
You're right. We heard yesterday that this was going to be possibly the most challenging 24-hour, 48-hour period for firefighters this year. And it turns out some of those conditions, especially around Kelowna, might be even worse than they were expecting. So we have this sort of lingering effect of that cold front passing through. You can see a lot of those showers hit. More were around this morning, but there's also lots of lightning hitting in some of the places those showers were, but also lightning strikes in some areas where we didn't get showers. So that dry lightning could mean even more fire starts, which is not great in a situation that's already really terrible. Now, I also want to take a look at the drought rating. This is what's really driving those fires. It's probably the root cause in addition to the fire starts. We have just historic levels. Look at where we were at last year. This was heading into a fall that was considered an unprecedented drought situation last fall. And it seems those conditions have carried through into this year. And that's why we see so many places in drought level 5. Just yesterday, Kelowna was bumped up to a level 5. So this is a very dangerous and active situation because everything is so dry. All those fuels are so available. The other thing you can look at here, this is a map of Kelowna and West Kelowna. This is where we're seeing that fire burn. And you can see the winds coming from the northwest. Those winds are going to keep blowing for a while yet. They have calmed down a bit from earlier today. At their peak, they were blowing at anywhere from 30 to 40 kilometers per hour sustained winds, which is much higher than forecasters were expecting at 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. But also the gusts are at 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, which is around what we were expecting, but the sustained winds being so much higher than we thought is really the concern. So that fire is being blown towards the city once again. Those winds might shift to blow even more from the north later today, but the wind speeds do seem to be coming down, so there's good news there at least.
All right, thanks, Darius, and we will check in with you a little later in the show.
Thank you.
For more on what is happening on the ground today, I'm joined by Gord Milsom, Mayor of West Kelowna. Mayor, thank you for being with us on a difficult day. The West Kelowna Fire Chief said just moments ago, this is going to be an incredibly difficult night. What have you been hearing from your constituents?
Well, obviously a great concern. This is a significant fire, very aggressive, very threatening. So our residents are anxious, particularly with the number of evacuation orders that are coming down, and we anticipate more. So obviously, when you're asked to leave your home, which they have to leave immediately, it's very concerning. You're leaving all your, a lot of your goods behind, and it's your property, and it's where your families live, and so yeah, they're anxious.
And can you walk us through how the evacuation has gone so far? How much of the city has been impacted?
Well, there's thousands of properties, property owners, residents are either under evacuation alert or evacuation order. As far as under evacuation order, where we've asked residents to leave their homes immediately, we're probably looking at least 3,000 so far within our community, and I'm just concerned that number is going to be increased significantly as time goes on here this afternoon, this evening.
And for people who are leaving, what is a message that you want them to hear from you at this time?
Well, a couple of messages. One is leave your home immediately. As whenever there's an evacuation order made to a certain street or neighborhood, it's imperative that they leave their homes immediately for their own safety and for the safety of our firefighters and first line responders. Otherwise, we're doing what we can. There's a united front as far as services that are working on their behalf. Our firefighters are just doing an incredible job with regards to saving homes. And And we're just going to keep our fingers crossed that all goes well as far as the winds and hopefully there'll be minimal damage going forward. But we're here to support our residents. Please come to there's an emergency services information center here at Royal LePage Place at 2760 Cameron Road, right by City Hall. So the residents can come and register here, or they can register online. Let us know what their needs are, and hopefully their needs can be accommodated. But it's a matter of staying calm, and we'll get through this together.
And we know this is a very dynamic situation, changing hour by hour. Do you have an update on how many homes may have been lost?
No, I don't. I don't believe that assessment will be made for some time, as I do know that our firefighters are focused on fighting that wildfire, and the battle goes on, and that's where their attention is. And also those areas that are under evacuation order have been kind of blocked off for security reasons, and it'll take some time to fully assess the damage done and the number of structures that have been impacted in a negative way.
Good of you to be with us. We are wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Meanwhile, a band chief in the lower Similkameen says he's frustrated more resources aren't coming his way. The Crater Creek wildfire near Kirimeo started July 22nd and has grown to more than 22,000 hectares. Chief Keith Crow says a lack of wildfire services for that fire has led to worsening conditions.
We haven't seen a helicopter in 3 days, almost 4 days now. So we're pretty much watching the fire, and it has been pretty stressful. My heart goes out to West Kelowna and everything that's happening out there. There's a lot of structure loss, and I really feel for the people. But I got to speak up for my community. We need the support as well. Our frustration is this could have been handled, I think, sooner. And now here we are losing structures. We're really monitoring our one subdivision right now. There's 17 homes there, and the fire is right beside it.
In BC's East Kootenay, the out-of-control Horse Thief Creek fire north of Panorama is pushing past man-made guards. As Corey Bullock reports, officials are urging people to keep calm, even as nearly 1,000 properties are under evacuation alert.
Invermere Mayor Al Miller is urging residents to remain calm and vigilant as weather continues to impact the Horse Thief Creek fire.
Staying out of the way, letting our agencies do their proper job, and we'll be well supported, we'll be well looked after.
On Thursday morning, the Regional District of East Kootenay expanded an existing evacuation alert to include more than 900 properties in Panorama, a precautionary measure to make sure residents are prepared should an order come down.
I think this is a good opportunity for residents and visitors to the valley to really have a good look at their own preparation plans and their personal preparation.
The Horse Thief Creek complex is made up of 3 different fires in the Columbia Valley, the Horse Thief Creek being the largest at nearly 4,000 hectares. It started on July 24th, and while crews have made progress with fire guards, Strong says the weather is not helping.
Over the last few days, we've seen those guards be challenged as we see hot, super dry temperatures across the province, including this region, and then winds moving through the area as well.
But the mayor says the community and the fire are in good hands.
We're well looked after here. We have a large contingent of firefighters internationally, and they really have been taking good care of us.
Crews from Australia, the U.S., and Mexico are helping in the Columbia Valley.
It's been a difficult season for many of our crews in the province, and we're super grateful for all of the support that we've received from external agencies.
Miller adds that plans are in place should residents need to be evacuated.
Well, certainly we will have a reception area set up at our community center. And from there, we will be pushing them out to available spots,
including hotels and other nearby communities if needed, he says. And in the meantime,
people just need to be calm and let the agencies do their job.
The Regional District of East Kootenay urges everyone in the region to sign up for their evacuation notification system. And anyone on alert should be prepared with a grab-and-go bag that includes essential items like medications, important documents, and ID. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Right now, there are flames on both sides of Lake Okanagan. The newer flare-up is on the east side, the Kelowna side, and it's believed to be an offshoot of the main fire. The danger is very real, the situation very volatile. Mira Baines is near Kelowna with more about what we know tonight.
The hills surrounding Lake Okanagan will be lit up again tonight. People anxious to know if their homes are still standing. Flames blown by strong winds, spitting out embers kilometers away.
Just to see the aggression and how the wind and the different colors of the flames and how they candled was just, I was just absolutely devastated and almost fell to my knees.
Evacuation orders expanded through the night and day. The McDougall Creek fire burned closer to West Kelowna as more fires started on the Kelowna side.
This went like a big ugly serpent over the hills and valleys and the crescents of the canyons, and then you see these homes with their lights on just underneath that.
Local officials say there have been significant losses, but how many buildings isn't clear. The situation is still too dangerous for crews to go in and assess the damage.
We fought 100 years worth of fires, all in one night.
West Kelowna's fire chief describes incredible efforts.
We undertook one of the biggest firefights I've ever been a part of in the West Kelowna Estates neighborhood. The firefighters who fought that fire held that ground.
No loss of life, according to officials, but another dire warning for people to leave if ordered to.
At this time, I'm asking British Columbians and tourists to avoid traveling to the central interior and southeast portions of the province if possible.
A catastrophic picture is emerging. Lake Okanagan Resort has burned down.
There's about 4 older apartment buildings on the resort property. The lowest one, the top half of it, was completely on fire.
But RCMP have told residents not to visit the evacuation zone by boat. The airspace above Kelowna International Airport is currently closed, and most flights are canceled. Evacuees are being urged to stay with family and friends.
The worst part is just the waiting at the evac center. They're short-staffed. They don't have enough volunteers.
We ended up being one of the last to leave because we were warning people. I was running door to door. It was scary. It was like running for your life.
There are fears over what the next 24 hours will bring. Mira Baines, CBC News, Kelowna.
We'll have much more on the wildfire situation throughout the province coming up in just a few minutes, and we're waiting on that press conference where David Eby is expected to declare a province-wide state of emergency. But first to other news of the day. It's been a busy day at the ferry terminal in Tsawwassen. Earlier this week, BC Ferry pulled the Coastal Renaissance from service over engine troubles. That has led to multiple sailing cancellations. As Joel Ballard reports, BC Ferry says this fix is going to take a while, and that's going to mean long waits for crossings.
Among the many drivers stuck waiting at this ferry terminal is Matt Balcaris. He packed up his home in New Brunswick, moving west to Vancouver Island.
So I had a reservation, was one on the boat that was canceled.
One of the main ships that traveled between Tsawwassen and Nanaimo had to be pulled from service on Wednesday due to an engine issue, leading to multiple cancellations. Balcaris was given a refund but wasn't booked on a new sailing, so he risked the standby lane. He's already waited for more than 4 hours.
I'm trying my best to go with the flow, right? Like, being upset doesn't help much. It would have been nice to have, I pre-booked this, like a while ago to make sure it was smooth to get over there, but what you gonna do?
4 ferry sailings on the route have been canceled per day, except on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, when an extra ship is being brought over. And it will stay that way until the engine is repaired, which could take weeks.
But yes, they will physically have to take.
And we're going to take you now to the Vancouver Cabinet offices, where we're going to hear from BC's Premier David Eby. Let's go to that press conference now.
Come to a head this evening. In just the last 24 hours, the situation has evolved and deteriorated quite rapidly. In just the last hour, we've gone from about 4,500 homes under evacuation to about 15,000 homes, families being evacuated from their homes across the province. We have tens of thousands more across the province on evacuation alert. Tonight, as a result of this rapid deterioration, we are declaring a provincial state of emergency to ensure that we have rapid access to any tools that we may need to respond to this situation. And these tools are necessary to support communities, to support families, and support those brave frontline workers who are battling the fires in our forests and in our communities. There are some steps that British Columbians can take to assist our brave firefighters and our brave first responders. We need British Columbians to stay alert, to be prepared for evacuation warnings and evacuation alerts. If you get an evacuation order, please leave. I spent the day speaking with community leaders, First Nations leadership across the province in affected areas, and one of their core messages is, please don't put firefighters at risk by staying in your home if you're under evacuation order. Please don't travel to affected areas. Only essential travel. We need roads clear for first responders, for emergency crews, for evacuees, and we need accommodation available as well. The situation is unpredictable right now, and there are certainly difficult days ahead. If there's a silver lining here, it's that we know that under stressful times, under difficult circumstances, British Columbians rise to the occasion. British Columbians are generous, compassionate, and resourceful, and we support each other, and we're going to keep doing that work. As a government, we're going to be here to support affected communities and families across the province, those parents who are comforting stressed out kids, those firefighters who are on the front lines, saving homes, saving communities, battling forest fires, those people wondering about what the future is going to look like in the next few days. The government will be there, and British Columbians across the province will be there for you. We can and we will get through this together. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to turn over to the Minister responsible, Bowen Ma.
Thank you so much, Premier, and good evening, everyone. I'm Bowen Ma, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, joining you today from the territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Before I begin, I'd like to echo Premier Eby and say that our hearts are with all of the people affected by wildfires across BC. And I want to offer my condolences to the people who have lost their homes due to the McDougall Creek wildfire near West Kelowna. I'd also like to offer my condolences to people across the province that are facing similar situation. The last 24 hours have been tremendously difficult for many people across British Columbia. And over the last 24 hours, and since I last spoke to you this afternoon, the wildfire situation in BC has rapidly evolved. Approximately 15,000 people are under evacuation order across the province. Approximately 20,000 additional people are under an evacuation alert. The cold front we are experiencing throughout the province has resulted in a rapidly deteriorating situation. There are numerous fires across the province threatening communities. People have been mostly following our call not to travel to certain areas and to stay out of the way of emergency crews so that they can do their jobs. However, we are also seeing more and more people being evacuated, and access to accommodations is increasingly challenging in the interior. We need accommodations available to keep people safe and to house critical response personnel like firefighters and healthcare staff. At this time, we are strongly recommending that people with plans to travel to fire-affected areas throughout the central interior and southeast in the coming days to cancel those plans. We need tourists and travelers to take this situation as seriously as the residents of these areas do. We ask that you please leave accommodation space available to evacuees, emergency personnel, and healthcare workers working across the province. I repeat, do not travel to wildfire-affected areas for non-essential reasons. By limiting our travel in affected areas, we can make room for those who need it and also ensure that our roads are clear for those who need to evacuate quickly. As Premier Eby mentioned, the first priority of our government is to ensure public safety. We will continue to do everything that we need to safeguard people and protect properties and communities from the threat of wildfire. By declaring a state of provincial emergency, we are able to enact extraordinary powers that, among other tools, could include legally enforceable orders that restrict travel to specific areas if people do not adhere to our calls to avoid non-essential travel to the central interior and southeast. We all have a part to play to protect ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and our communities. This decision to declare a provincial state of emergency was not done lightly. It was made on the advice of emergency management officials and BC Wildfire Service experts. And I am continuing to encourage everyone to please follow the advice of your local government and First Nation. If you are put under an evacuation order, you must leave the area immediately. Evacuation alerts and orders are published on the Emergency Info BC website at emergencyinfobc.gov.bc.ca. Please stay calm, be alert, and be prepared. Thank you. I believe we have some time for a few questions.
And you were just watching Premier David Eby and Minister Bowen Ma declaring a province-wide state of emergency in BC that expands the province's power and will allow it to deliver a more coordinated emergency response to keep the public safe. After the break, we head north to the other critical wildfire situation in our country. We'll tell you about the ongoing mass evacuation of Yellowknife next. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. We have been speaking to people who have been evacuated from their homes in the Okanagan, and throughout this show tonight, we will share you what they had to say, starting with Preston Dunbar, who was evacuated to Kamloops from his property in West Kelowna.
So it was a pretty eventful evening. We ended up in Kamloops, BC, staying with some family. Myself and Cody Dunbar, my cousin, she has a dog, and it was a little hard to find a place in Kelowna, but we had lots of friends that were willing to help out. It was just best to leave Kelowna in general and figure out our next steps from there.
And do you know, Preston, the state of your home on the west side?
No, we have no idea what's standing, what's not standing. I know I've seen lots of videos and news updates. We're just sitting and waiting until we get a further update, and who knows when that will be with the rate the fire is going. So kind of just a waiting game and hoping for the best.
And do you have plans? Did you bring enough to last you? Because this could be 1 day, 2 days. It all happened in a big hurry. What are your plans for the next couple of days then, Preston?
Unfortunately, we have not gotten that far yet. Thankfully, I was able to pack a suitcase and with a few clothes and some sentimental things. My cousin Cody, on the other hand, had less time to grab some things. So we're just taking it 1 day at a time. I hope we're able to find a place in Kelowna, whether that's our own place or somewhere else, because I start school August 28th, and my cousin Cody, she just got a position at Kelowna General Hospital as an RN, so we'll see if we can get back in Kelowna soon.
Well, Preston, it's been really good to talk to you. Good luck. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Preston Dunbar. We reached him this morning in Kamloops. He was evacuated from his home off West Side Road around 7:30 yesterday as flames came down the hillside, and he's now evacuated in Kamloops for this foreseeable future.
Welcome back. We now go to the Northwest Territories, where authorities say firefighting efforts in the last 2 days have held back the flames threatening the capital. But the fire could still reach Yellowknife this weekend. A deadline to evacuate the city has now passed, but many people are still waiting to fly out on commercial and military planes. Others are just now hitting the highway. The CBC's Juanita Taylor is on the only road out of Yellowknife.
The deadline issued by the government of the Northwest Territories to evacuate Yellowknife has come and gone. This highway is the only way out of the city, and there's fires burning on both sides of it. Officials say it is a critical route to safety, and they're determined to keep it open, reassuring for residents who are leaving their evacuation to the last minute. What are your plans?
Probably go Dadsville right now. And then probably from there, we're going to see within a couple of days. We might head down to Saskatchewan. We're not sure yet.
What's the situation been like for you so far?
Hectic, like everybody else. Everybody's leaving and praying and hoping for the best, which the firefighters and everybody's doing a great job. No complaints in the city.
With thousands of people having already left the capital city, there have been concerns about possible looting.
Please don't spread rumors. There's no looting in Yellowknife. RCMP are patrolling the neighborhoods. I contacted them this morning. I saw them on my walk to work this morning. There was no looting. There is no looting. So please, your homes are safe. You've got to lock up and get out of town.
Meanwhile, that fire that's causing an entire city to evacuate is expected to reach city limits over the weekend. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Yellowknife.
And as you just saw there, while the evacuation is still very much ongoing, most residents have left, including many who went by car. They're now arriving in towns in Alberta, such as Valley View. Madeline Cummings was there.
Valley View, Alberta is yet another stop on the long journey from Yellowknife. Evacuees have been coming to this small town arena since yesterday afternoon. 130 people had checked in as of last night. Here they can find food vouchers, a cup of coffee, and if they're lucky, a hotel room. Some are finding shelter in town, but others are being told to move on to Edmonton because there's just not enough room. Like this convoy of families from Yellowknife. For many, with more than 1,000 kilometers traveled, exhaustion is setting in. Yusuf Al-Shayeb's car broke down in High Level and he's barely slept.
The condition now very, very, very difficult because no place, no job, and my wife is pregnant.
But there's also a sense of relief.
When we got to High Levels, when we got there, okay, we are safe. We're happy. I told him we just need to cross the fires, to cross the limits, and then after that, no problem. We can sleep in the street, no problem, because life is everything.
Just before these families left to drive to Edmonton, the local Dairy Queen's manager came by and passed out ice cream bars to everybody. That brought a smile on the kids' faces, and the adults were happy too to have a snack before getting back in the car. Madeline Cummings, CBC News, Valley View, Alberta.
Back to other local news now, and the protests at Fairy Creek. After cases against 146 Fairy Creek protesters were dropped, protesters hoping to stop logging in old-growth forests are still active. Our Emily Fagan spoke to two of them about why they are committed to their cause.
I'm here in the Fairy Creek Injunction area on Vancouver Island. It was here on Tuesday that 3 protesters from a group called Savage Patch were arrested by the RCMP. The group was attempting to block logging company Teal Jones from cutting down old-growth forests. They say that they are intent on protecting old-growth trees, as well as the forests they say are habitats for several endangered species.
There is a place for the sustainable and responsible use of timber products. There's nothing wrong with that. What we're against is, like we said before, clear cutting and the destruction of the last remaining old growth that we have here, the 1.5% that is an absolute vital component of this ecosystem.
The protesters did not disclose their future plans or tactics, but they said they're here for the long haul.
We will continue to hold our position in whatever way we need to continue to make it known that we will stand.
Leaders from the Pachutet First Nation say that their elected chiefs have asked the protesters to leave, but that they have refused. The nation says the protesters do not represent them and asks that they respect the nation's rights to manage their territory without interference. Emily Fagan, CBC News, near Port Renfrew.
After the break, we'll head back to Kelowna for more information from fire officials and those being forced to flee.
Elizabeth joining us on the phone. So you are in West Kelowna. So Elizabeth, how are you doing?
Oh, we're safe. You know, it's an amazing community here in West Kelowna. We are actually in a position right now. We're just off of Highway 97 and West Side Road at the shopping center watching. We have lots of people here watching that live on the hill and are looking at their houses with binoculars. What we're seeing is with the winds, it's pretty incredible that lots of white smoke, but all of a sudden we'll get these puffs of black smoke, which we assume will either be a house or a vehicle or something like that. So lots of people here watching their houses from far away, safe and out of the way of emergency vehicles.
So Elizabeth, I hear that you were evacuated. Can you walk me through how that whole process unfolded? How did you hear about it? When did that happen?
Well, we actually live just off of West Side Road and Nancy Way, and so we saw it right away. We saw the smoke. Yesterday, we were on alert all day. We were able to pack a bag of our important things and keep it there. We went to work, and then by the time I got home from work at 5 o'clock, you see that the situation had changed so drastically that people were now really, everyone was out on the streets looking up. We could see trees candling, and of course, we are just below Rose Valley and where the water reservoir is. So it's with the heat, with the wind, it's pretty unbelievable.
Right, and that reservoir is a new project over there, right? And multi-million dollars, lots of concerns about that, with the potential of it going up in smoke. So that is indeed something very concerning. So you heard about it, you packed up your bags, and you said you brought some of, your most precious possessions with you. What were some of those things that you brought along with you, Elizabeth?
Well, our passports, because, we love to travel, and if this happens, we have to be prepared. We brought our 2 dogs, German Shepherd, and a small little rescue pup that we have, and, just grabbed what we thought we would need for the next couple of days, medicines and things, but, everything can be replaced. So it's important for people to be safe, and we have a great community. There's already, there's probably about 50 people here who are watching their homes, have binoculars out, or looking up at that hill. People have been coming by and dropping off snacks, fresh fruits and water. And so we're all, we're resilient. And the Okanagan is an amazing community. So we're going to get through this, but it is really, now we're just watching and waiting to hear on the updates.
Absolutely. That community is very resilient. I mean, it's happened 20 years ago when there were those devastating fires, and, just right on the anniversary, it's really quite something. So
provincial state of emergency has now been declared in BC. Premier David Eby says 15,000 homes are now on evacuation order, with thousands more on alert. There are fires throughout this province, but one place we're watching closely are the fires in the Kelowna area. Nicole Bennett is the BC Wildfire Service Fire Information Officer for the McDougall Creek Fire. That fire started in West Kelowna. She joins us now with the latest on this rapidly changing situation. Nicole, a question on many people's minds tonight. What is the current status of that fire?
So we did just update the size of the fire to approximately 10,500 hectares. That is very much an estimate. Still, visibility really decreased this afternoon and kind of socked in over the fire. So we haven't been able to fly the entire fire perimeter yet to get a more accurate update. But when visibility improves, we'll be looking to do that. Otherwise, we're still seeing a very dynamic situation on the ground. And, from the surrounding area, it's quite dry out there. That cold front that came through brought some winds with it that's really driven the fire activity, fire behavior, and fire growth in the last 24 hours. And we're looking still to see that into this afternoon, evening, and likely again overnight. The overnight recoveries yesterday night were not there. They were extremely poor, so temperatures were still high. Relative humidity was still low.
And as you mentioned there, it just seems like this fire has traveled and spread incredibly rapidly. What will it take to slow the progression? What conditions need to change? That was Nicole Bennett. We have lost our connection with her. She's with BC Wildfire Service. We will try to get her back. Drop everything and leave. That's the advice to people under evacuation order. Up next, we'll hear from a man who had to evacuate and part ways with his animals.
And we have some folks on the line right now. Let's go to Taylor in Kelowna. You've been waiting to speak with us. Taylor, where are you right now?
Hi there. Good morning. I'm in West Kelowna right now, kind of towards Mission Hill, the winery.
And what's your situation where you're at?
So right now I'm staying at a friend's house here. I got evacuated last night around 10 o'clock p.m. Certainly a little tense last night, and we had to pack up and got the evacuation order from my location there. The fires were getting quite close to our house at that point. So I'm not sure how things went overnight there, but the main thing is most of my neighbors had everything packed up and organized, and we all got out with enough time to spare and not be put in a dangerous situation. So thanks for all the emergency crews that were giving us those orders and making sure that everyone was getting out safe.
Absolutely. And so, before you left, were there any measures that you took to try and protect your home as much as you could?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm in a strata. There's about 30 townhouse units where I am, so there's only so much that you can do there. I think for me personally, I was just making sure I had some of the important items that I needed, including my passport, my wallet, laptops and clothes and that sort of thing, and just made sure that I was ready to go if they did come around and say that we had to leave, which they did. And I made sure that I took pictures and a video of everything kind of in my house, just in the event that we have to go that route with insurance, just for my own kind of protection of items and that sort of thing. So just making sure that all of our neighbors were safe and that everyone was in a position to get out if they needed to as well. So it was good to see everyone rallying around each other and making sure that everyone was doing what they needed to do and what the orders were telling us to do.
I can't imagine what that's like, to take those photos, to see that through the lens and think that potentially you might not be coming home to that. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's scary, surreal for sure. It's something you don't think is ever going to happen. I know, our area in particular, we've never had fires come that close. It's never really been a concern. So for it to have gotten that close last night and even closer today, obviously I'm not right at the house right now, but I know that the fires were moving down the hill and moving closer to my house and some other houses. So I'm just praying right now that everyone's out, everyone's safe, and a big thank you, obviously, to the forest firefighters and the fire department here in West Kelowna and Kelowna, and all of the emergency services, the RCMP, for going around and knocking on everyone's doors and really making sure that everyone was out safe.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohith Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Darius Mahdavi joins us now with the forecast. Darius, dramatic images we've been seeing throughout this show. We had warnings that these conditions were coming. What kind of conditions can we expect into the weekend?
Well, we've had this severe thunderstorm watch in place over much of the province over the last few hours, and now that thunderstorm watch is part of what made today so difficult. We didn't know where those thunderstorms were going to pop up, and where they did, we saw even higher winds than we were otherwise expecting. So in places where those thunderstorms showed up, we saw winds gusting as high as 80 kilometers per hour, making it an especially dangerous situation. Now, we didn't see one of those thunderstorms pop up around Kelowna, but the area that this fire is covering, I just wanted to show it briefly because it has grown so much over such a short time. It's covering so much area, and I would love to show you, but I can't here, some satellite imagery from NASA showing just 4 days ago, nothing at all. Then a small little bit of fire activity being seen on satellite. Yesterday it grew quite a bit, and I thought it had grown, it had exploded. Nothing compared to today. The area it's covering now is so large, and on the imagery you can see the heat signatures from over here and all through this area. So it's quite a shocking image. If you go online, you can see it on NASA. But here I want to show the near-surface smoke through much of the southern interior. You can see how much it's spreading. The purple areas are where it is most intense. And over the next 48 hours or so, some of these smoke conditions are going to be especially dangerous. So you need to make sure that you're keeping safe when it comes to this air quality, because it's one of the most dangerous parts of wildfires, aside from the flames themselves. No matter where you are, even if you're quite far away, those high winds could be pushing that smoke towards you, and you need to make sure that you're staying safe in that regard. I just want to take a quick look at the fire danger rating. We saw it come down a bit in the north today, but go up quite a lot in the south, where we're seeing a lot of these fires that are especially dangerous as we see that unstable air from that cold front. So that's what's making today especially dangerous. Tomorrow should be a little bit better than today in terms of the risk in terms of fires, because some of those conditions will alleviate a bit. Still lots of sun in the forecast down here, a lot of smoke in the southern interior as well. Here in Vancouver, we're not getting that smoke because of the way the winds are blowing. So we've just got sun in the forecast and a pretty warm weekend.
Well, good to see there may be some relief coming. We will watch that over the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're hearing that one of the hardest things for evacuees is leaving everything familiar behind, with no guarantee it will be there upon return. For some perspective on this, Brent Coyne joins me now. He is a resident of Traders Cove who had to evacuate and give away his beloved chickens. Brent, share with me what the last few hours have been like for you.
Yes, the last few hours have probably been somewhat more settled. The last 24 hours have been quite traumatic, probably an overused but an absolutely appropriate word. You know, my wife and I and my daughter and our 4 chickens, of course, you know, we woke up on Thursday morning, had knowledge that there was a fire nearby. We were appreciative of that, of course, but none of us expected it to explode in size and scope within hours. That day I was actually working out of town, and I quickly returned home midday, and it was clear that things had changed dramatically within a few short hours, and I effectively had little time to collect certain personal items that were important, and these chickens, and hustle away. And it was very, very scary, watching your neighborhood go ablaze, and hear trees explode and see roads ignite around you on the way out. It's something you're still processing.
And Brent, I can see you're joining us from your car. Good of you to join us amid all the chaos. Where are you staying since you've been evacuated?
I've been quite fortunate. I'm staying at a friend's place for this evening. I actually stayed at his residence last night. He has a dock, so I slept on a dock. And looked across the water to my neighborhood, Traders Cove, and of course the rest of West Kelowna. It was a thoroughly spectacular sight in so many sad ways. But going forward, I expect I'll be sleeping in a trailer through other kindness of friends, but it's a bit unknown at this point.
Wow. And we've heard that you've had to give away your chickens. What was that like?
Well, I've given them to a friend, and they've taken them to a farm 100 kilometers north. These are obviously very special chickens to my 5-year-old, and it was the most important item, of course. And yes, these chickens they're in safe and capable hands right now. And I suppose it's some levity in an otherwise very tense and sad situation for many of us.
Glad to hear that they are in a safe location. What are the next few days and few weeks looking like for you?
I don't know. I mean, as an Okanagan resident, the unfortunate reality is that none of us are generally oblivious to the risk of fire dangers. I have been evacuated actually in July of 2016. And we were put in a hotel for a week, and 8 days later we could return. I don't know what it looks like now. This seems far more dramatic. Obviously, none of us really know. It's changing by the hour. And it seems like this fire may go on for several days, and only at that point will we begin to know if and when we can go back. So I can't speculate, but I would be surprised if it's any time in the next 7 to 10 days, but I don't know.
Well, thank you for your time, Brent. We hope you're able to get home as soon as possible. Wishing the best to you and your family during this difficult time.
Thank you.
That was Brent Coyne, a resident of Traders Cove. Changing evacuation orders and a growing fire. Up next, we'll return to our top story with the information you need to know about wildfires impacting Kelowna.
Somebody else on the line. We have Matt calling in from Kelowna. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Hi, Matt. So you've lived in Kelowna all your life. What's your thoughts as you're watching this fire unfold?
It's pretty incredible. I've seen and heard about a lot of people being evacuated, and seeing lots of video of people losing their houses. It's very sad, and it's just been incredible to watch the wind control this fire, and even transfer it across the lake just by the wind and embers. So yeah, really powerful.
Really powerful. So Matt, you were watching the fire last night. Where are you situated? And tell me, what were you doing as you watched it make its way over the ridge?
Yeah, we're still just outside of the evacuation zone. So we're in West Kelowna, right overlooking the highway. So if we get evacuated, it means the highway will have been evacuated as well. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But yeah, we kind of overlook across the water to the north end of Kelowna, but we also see the whole mountainside of West Kelowna where the fire started, and watched it crawl down the mountains, and then the wind changed and it started blowing it north towards Vernon's direction, and it ended up crossing the lake and, making its way down to the water as well. So that's where a lot of homes we saw burn, is once that fire made its way down to the water where there's lots of lakefront properties.
Right, so you're on the other side of Boucherie Road or Highway 97?
Other side of Highway 97.
Right,
so
okay.
Kind of overlooking Okanagan Bridge in Kelowna and West Kelowna, yeah.
And so, you're pretty calm about all of it. How's your family, how's your household feeling about it?
Yeah, definitely very nervous. I'm on my way home to meet with my wife, who wants to get out of there. We watched last night as traffic backed up across the bridge at 10 o'clock at night. Well, from 8 to 10 o'clock, it was gridlock out there. So many thousands of people were evacuated in West Kelowna, and so I'm sure a lot of surrounding areas that weren't on evacuation order also decided to leave. So yeah, when you have that many people and you can't get out, that can be scary. So for me, I'm still relatively calm, but we'll see. It seems like the wind has all the control here, so it all depends on the wind right now.
Yeah, it certainly does all depend on that wind. And, speaking of that bridge, I think even on a good day, it's often very packed. So I can't even imagine what it's like to have thousands of people all trying to get across that bridge. And so, Matt, you've lived in Kelowna your whole life. What's it like seeing all of this happen in context of the number of wildfires we've seen over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It just reminds me back in 2003 when we also had another large forest fire that took quite a few homes.
Earlier in the show, we heard from Premier David Eby when he declared a state of emergency right across this province. This gives the province access to tools to help fight the fires. In just the last hour, 4,500 homes were placed under evacuation. 20,000 more across the province are on evacuation alert. The Premier advised British Columbians to be prepared for evacuation orders and strongly discouraged people from going to the evacuation zones or staying in their homes if they are under evacuation orders. This could put emergency crews at risk and impact firefighting efforts. We're going to return to our Brady Strachan live in West Kelowna now. It's been a difficult day there. What is the mood heading into the weekend?
Yeah, Michelle, I'm at the evacuation reception center here in West Kelowna, and the smoke is, as you can see behind me, it's really kind of poured in here as the fire has shifted. They've moved the evacuation order line right up to the highway, which is just a couple hundred meters behind us here. So the mood here, we're in a real fire emergency here, and people living in this neighborhood near the reception center are talking about leaving. I've been speaking to evacuees all day, and it's just the stress of being under an evacuation order or looming one is really getting to people here, Michelle.
A difficult couple of days. We knew this was coming, but never an easy time. Thank you, Brady, for your reporting.
All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks for being with us tonight. For the latest on the ongoing fire situation, you can check out our website, cbc.ca/BC. If you're low on power or data, go to cbc.ca/LITE for fire updates. That is our text-only website that loads quicker and uses less data. Good night.